69 on the calendar in the matter of Feinstein versus Fairley. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Mr. Feinstein, it is your complaint that you were assaulted and your car vandalized while you were at the defendant's bar.
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defendant, although I don't think you were there, is that right?
No, I wasn't there.
She says through her employees, I'm sure she has witnesses here, are going to tell me that you were very drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
And, well, I gather you acknowledge that you were very drunk, and any injuries that you sustained were sustained as a result of you flailing around and hurting yourself, and they don't know anything that happened to your car. So, what's the name of your bar, pub?
Scotland Yard Pub.
Which of your employees was there that evening?
Justin and Eric.
All right, stand up, please. And you don't know anything about this of your own personal knowledge?
No, I wasn't there.
You can have a seat. Justin?
Yes.
And Eric?
That's correct.
What is your given first name?
Lucky.
That's what your parents named you?
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Are you an only child?
No. There's 3 other siblings.
Are you the first, second, third, or the fourth?
I'm the 4th.
You're the last one.
Lucky to be here.
Got it. This incident happened at the pub.
The 22nd of what?
First, we got to get the date. Questions get harder, Lucky.
7/22, I believe it was.
Had you been to this pub before?
Only a couple times before this.
Immediately prior to the 22nd of July, when had you been to the pub?
Maybe a week before that.
So sometime the 15th, 16th.
Yeah.
Prior to that, when had you been to the club?
Maybe a month previous to that one.
Never had any trouble there?
Never, no.
You have a drinking problem?
No, not necessarily. Yeah, I like to drink, but I don't consider myself having a problem with it, no.
Well, according to you, Lucky, on the 22nd of July of 2005, you were drunk.
Yes, ma'am.
If I had to place a wager, I would say you have at least a minor problem with alcohol.
I would agree with that, yes.
Who do you live with?
I live with my parents.
They still think they're lucky?
I help them. I think that they do, yes, because I help them out.
So tell me what happened on the 22nd, Lucky.
Okay, in the afternoon, I was at my friend's restaurant, which is a couple doors down from theirs.
What were you doing there?
I was eating pizza. They have a pizza place. I've been going there for the past 25 years. And I decided to go next door, and I was advised to never ever go into that place because I would end up in trouble there, because there's always trouble over there. I went over there and ended up there a lot longer than I anticipated. I had way more drinks than I, wanted to have, but I was having a good time, so I kept on.
How were you having a good time?
Well, I was shooting pool, and I was talking to people, and I was buying several people drinks. Then, approximately 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night, I made the mistake.
What time did you arrive there?
Oh, maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had maybe 12 beers there or something like that. I was out of control, I admit that, but I didn't cause any problems. I wasn't obnoxious.
When you say you were out of control, Lucky,
well, drinking-wise.
Tell me what you mean.
Drinking-wise, I overdid it drinking-wise, and I knew that I was drunk, and I wasn't about to drive out of there, to leave, I was going to call a taxi, and I went into the bathroom. That was the mistake I made because the bouncer was in there. No words were exchanged. I looked at him, and the next thing I know, I was out unconscious. And then I found myself in the parking lot, left for dead. When I came to, first thing I saw was him again.
Which one?
This guy here in the black shirt.
That would be Eric.
I asked him for help, realizing that my wallet was missing, and if I could go back in the bathroom to see if my wallet was in there. He said, "No, you're drunk. Get out of here." And then he said the police are coming too. So I said, well, okay, well, I would like to wait for the police and talk to them. The police came, and they just told me that I need to go home too. Call a taxi, do whatever, go home.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do. Yes,
I'd
ma'am.
like to see it. Go ahead.
I went over to my truck, my tailgate, and sat there. A couple women came over and were sitting next to me, assuring me everything's going to be okay. A couple minutes go by, and the police come back again, which I was not causing any more problems, that's for sure.
Well, somebody called them.
They were called again.
But they weren't called by you.
No, ma'am.
So they were called by somebody about your behavior.
But I wasn't doing anything.
That's not my question. I said they were called by somebody about your behavior.
They were called a second time.
Oh, okay. Well, this isn't the police report about their call. This is a police report that you made that said that somebody punched you in the mouth and took your property. There has to be a police report of when they responded to their calls. You did call the police, didn't you?
I called the first time.
Who called the second time?
One of the customers that was out in the parking lot.
You have a copy of that police report?
No, we do not.
Okay. So go ahead.
Okay, so then the police came for the second time, and they said, we're going to take you home. We're going to give you a taxi ride home. And they're very embarrassing to me to be put in handcuffs like I'm being arrested. At that point, I realized that I needed to go to the hospital. My face was puffing up, my back of my head, I was dizzy. So they said, would you like an ambulance? I said, yes, I would very much like an ambulance. I went to the hospital, they sewed my lip up, and then I walked back towards my vehicle, which is several miles away from there. And it was about 2:30 in the morning at that time. I realized that my truck was vandalized. My windshield was busted. My car was keyed around the sides of my car. My tailpipes were kicked down to the ground. And at that point, I realized that I better not say anything to them. And so there was a taxi out in the parking lot, and I was taken home. The very next morning, I went back there, and I talked to the owner, Patrick Sirely, and asked him if he would mind paying my hospital bill because I was beaten up in his establishment.
But you don't know who beat you up.
I'm not clear on that, but all I know is I saw him, and then I was out cold. And then I found myself in the parking lot coming to, and then I saw him again, at my feet, basically. Or I was at his feet.
So who's going to start?
I'll start.
Okay, take your hands out of your pockets and start.
When I got to work that night at 7, he came up to order another beer about a half hour into my shift, and I noticed that he was intoxicated, so I refused to serve him, and he went haywire and slammed his fist down on the bar.
Put your hand down, sir.
Called me a name that I don't think I can say. He started ripping up $100 bills in front of everyone from his wallet. Nobody laid a finger on him inside the bar. I didn't want to get into a physical altercation with him, so I waited till our doorman got on at 9. Finally, when he was put outside of the bar, he kept charging Eric, trying to bust his way back in. I went out to see what was going on. He threatened to get a gun from his truck and kill me, and Eric and everybody else in the parking lot. Began kicking his own truck, pounding his head into his own truck, and punching into his own truck and other people's cars in the parking lot. At one point, he knelt down in front of Eric, took off his shirt, and said, just kill me right now, just kill me right now. And that's what it seemed like it was going to get to a point where I needed to call the police, because people were very angry that he was...
Is that when you called the police the first time?
Yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
If you drank too...
Night of drinking, he was assaulted by bar doorman Eric Gallant. Eric and his co-worker Justin Murphy claim Lucky was out of control drunk.
Okay, Eric, you got on about 9 o'clock?
Yeah, about 9 o'clock, and it wasn't too long until Justin called me over. And I tell Lucky that he was done for the evening, he needed to go someplace else. He asked why. He said, I told him that, you were giving a problem to our bartender. Come back some other night, I'll buy you a beer, and, that'll be the end of it. He got upset and irate, said that he had a gun in his truck, and he was going to start shooting the place up. One of the customers that was sitting outside got upset by that. They started having a yelling match. I got involved. I separated the two. And he continued to threaten people that were around. He said, I was going to come back and get you, shoot you, shoot you. And that's when he tried to bully his way through me. And as soon as he touched me, I just put him to the ground and held him down.
When you say you put him to the ground, how did you put him to the ground, Eric?
Tripped his leg and put him on his back, one hand on his chest, one hand holding his arm. I said he needed to calm down. As soon as I let go of his arm, he swung on me. And I just knocked it out of the way and held him down again. And Justin was outside and said, do I need to call the cops? I said, yes, please call the police officers. I got off of Lucky, went inside to make sure the cops were coming. Came back outside after a minute or two, and Lucky was already laid up against the wall at the pizzeria. Now, I didn't talk to Lucky at all in the bathroom. I don't know where that came from. So after he was laid out, he woke up a couple minutes later, and he asked me who knocked him out. I had no idea who did it. And then he started accusing me that I stole his wallet.
Did you find his wallet in the pub? Did you find your wallet subsequently?
No, Your Honor, I didn't.
The police officers came. They spoke with him. They spoke with me. They said they needed to take another call, but he was going to leave the area. He was walking down the alley, and as soon as the cops were out of sight, he came back and continued to talk to some other person who wasn't even there that night.
Where were you when you observed this?
Standing at the door.
Do you remember any of that, sir?
No, ma'am. I never left that parking lot. I was waiting for the police to come because I wanted to.
The police came already, sir. They came and they left.
Right, and then they came back a second time.
Right. My question is, why did they have to come back a second time? Why didn't you just leave?
Because I was very drunk. I wasn't about to go anywhere, and I was sitting on my tailgate wondering, what am I going to do now?
Listen to me very carefully, sir. When you're very drunk, it's very, very difficult for a court to make a judgment as to the veracity, the truthfulness of what you testify to and to give any credence to what you testify to. You are asking me to believe you above two people who were working that evening, sober that evening, have a clear recollection, at least according to them, of what transpired that evening, as opposed to believing you who was so drunk they didn't know on which pole they were at.
Ma'am, I'm saying that they're lying about this whole thing, that he's saying that he didn't give me any more drinks after 7 o'clock at night. I was in there drinking heavily. I was having beer after beer. They gave me way, way too many beers, in my opinion. I don't think that
How
that's
old are
right.
you?
I'm 41.
So is this what your complaint is, sir, that the bar overserved you?
Yes, ma'am, one thing. But I don't think that that should
Eric,
happen.
we started this case by my saying to you, do you have a drinking problem? And you said to me, I don't think so. Maybe a little. That's like being a little bit pregnant. You never have a little bit of a drinking problem, Lucky. Now, if you were 18 years old, I would say, I'm going to nail them, because a bar should know that a kid comes in and you don't serve a kid more alcohol than they can consume. When you're 41 years old, you're supposed to know how much alcohol you can consume and still have your wits about you. And according to you, you were warned. Warned! Don't go in there. There's always trouble in that bar. But when you were at this place twice before, according to you, you had no trouble. So they clearly for any reason.
I believe that they do have it in for me.
Explain that to me.
Because mainly there's just Mexicans in there, and they always call me white boy.
Lucky. Did they call you white boy on the 15th of July?
No,
Did they call you white boy the month before that when you went in there?
no.
You didn't change composition from July 15th to July 22nd, did you? You were drunk. Stop blaming the rest of the world. You were drunk. Either you fell, you got beaten up, you don't know who did it, your car got trashed, you don't know who did that. You have to accept responsibility for your own behavior. If you drank too much, it's your fault. Nobody got you down there with a funnel and filled your stomach full of beer. Nobody. You managed to do that all by yourself. If you had gotten into your car and killed somebody on the way home, I would take every piece of property that this lady had.
Which someday will happen.
Just a second. I would take every piece of property that this lady had, because under those circumstances, both of you would be responsible. I'd take every bit of property you had, and I'd take every bit of property she had, because somebody who was innocent got killed. The only one that got hurt that night was you. And you caused that yourself. So deal with it. Your case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
They're lying. No, I don't have a gun.
Heb, step forward, please.
18-year-old student Nikki Frazier and guardian Sam Suter are suing Nikki's mother, Stacy Hebb, for child support costs. Nikki says her mom won't turn over child support she receives from her father.
Mr. Suter, your complaint is that you and your family were nothing but kind to the defendant. She was having some difficulty, and she was unemployed several years ago. Her daughter and your daughter were friends since grade school, and you volunteered to give her a home.
Yes, ma'am.
When she was 16. How did you do in their home, the Suter home? Did you do okay?
Yes.
Did you graduate yet?
Oh, I graduate in a couple weeks.
What are you doing after graduation?
I want to go to college.
How did you do in high school?
I make good grades.
She's been AB honor roll all through high school.
Did you apply to college?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Because the application fees are like $50 for each application, and my mom told me she'd help me pay for them, but she never helped me pay for it.
So, Mr. Suter, this is your lawsuit. Ms. Fraser lived with you for 2 years, and you got no support for her from her mother. You did not even seek support.
No, ma'am.
But then you found out that Ms. Hebb was getting support for Nikki from Nikki's father, and you feel as if that's unfair.
Somewhat, yes.
This is not rocket science, Ms. Hebb. How long have you been divorced from Nikki's father?
Since she was about 6 or 7.
Do you have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
Are the other children also the product of this marriage?
No, ma'am.
And how much do you receive from Nikki's father for her support?
$50 a week.
What did you do with the money since 2003?
When she has called and said that she didn't have any food in the house and she needed me to take her to eat, I would feed her. If she's needed personal hygiene items, I've taken her. I've paid her cell phone bills. And yes, I did tell her that I would pay for her application fees. She never came to me and said, I've applied here and I need
I'm
the
not worried
money."
about college vacation fees. How do you support yourself? You think you have an obligation to support your daughter?
Yes, ma'am.
So that the things you bought for her, the few toiletries you bought for her, or paying a cell phone bill, you did that for your daughter because you're her mother. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
The $50 a week that you were getting from her father should have gone to the Suter family.
He never asked for support, or I would have given it to him.
Why does he have to ask? Did you ever say to him, Miss Hebb, Mr. Suter, I get money for Nikki's support from her father. It's not right that I keep it. I'm going to turn it over to you when I get it.
No, ma'am, I didn't. I instead, like I said, whenever she would call and said that she needed things, I would take care of her.
Well, that's what you did for her because you're her mother. She has two parents, a mother and a father. You're the mother. You work. If you have to take care of a few items, if you happen to take care of a few items for your daughter, that's very nice of you. The other $50 a week, if her father knew that she wasn't living in your home, did your father know you weren't living?
He just found out recently because I didn't have his number to get a hold of him.
If her father knew, I guarantee you, her father wouldn't have said, well, I'm going to send her money.
Her father has known. She's gone and seen him since she's lived with Mr. Suter.
I'm just curious. Not that I'm taking this for the truth of what you're going to tell me, but just my own curiosity. Did he ever say to you, if he knew that she wasn't living with you, I'd like to send the money to Mr. Suter?
No, ma'am.
Never did?
No, ma'am.
He must have had a lobotomy. Ms. Hebb, this is not a difficult case. It doesn't even test my academic prowess. The last 2 years, your daughter has been living with the Suter family, and you've collected $50 a week, roughly $2,500 a year. The Suters are suing you for $5,000 because that's approximately what you've collected over the time that your daughter has been living with the Suters from her father, and that money should have been turned over to the Suter family immediately. Judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. That's all. Make those college applications.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
She didn't want to move in with me when we had to move. She would rather stay with her.
You may be seated. Folks, have a seat, please.
You own a cab company?
Yes.
For how long?
For 3 years.
How many cabs do you have?
About 8.
You own them?
Yes.
And I gather what you do is you lease those cabs out on a weekly basis to people who want to drive them. They give you part of the money, and that's how you make your living, and that's how the drivers make their living.
Yes.
Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. How much do you charge per week to lease one of your cabs?
It's $400.
And how much of what the cab driver earns do you keep? What percentage?
I don't keep any percent, just $400 a week and...
Flat. And
Flat,
they can
exactly.
drive the cab as much as they want.
Correct.
They can go 24/7 if they want to, as long as they can keep awake.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
And they pay for and you pay for the maintenance, etc., on the cab.
Yes.
Do you get the same cab each time?
Yes, they keep the car, the same car
keep
all
it?
the time.
Okay. When did Miss Purdy begin to lease her cab from you?
That was on July.
Give me the exact date, sir.
I can't remember exact day. That was...
Well, you should have records. So you have a business. You have records. You have a business. So when, for the first time, did Miss Purdy lease a cab from you?
It was about July 15th.
Is that the same kind of about 8 cabs? Or was it July 15th?
July 15th.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I have July 22nd, Your Honor.
You have July 22nd was the first time that you rented a cab?
Yes.
Let me see your records to show me July 15th.
I didn't bring any records about that.
Well, where'd you think you were coming today? To a tea dance?
No.
July 22nd was the first time you leased the cab?
Yes.
You gave him $400.
Yes, I did.
For how many weeks did you lease the cab?
I leased it for 3 weeks.
Okay. And was July 22nd a Monday?
That was a Friday, Your Honor.
When did you pay him the $400? Each Friday?
Every Friday, yes.
Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct.
And the Friday was for the following week, is that right?
Yes.
So you were paid $400 on a Friday, and she was supposed to keep it the following week. However, Miss Purdy says that when she paid you the last $400, which is on what date?
August 13th, Your Honor.
You told her that she couldn't keep the cab. Is that right?
No, that's not right.
So you let her keep the cab that week?
No, because I fired her that day.
Well, when you fired her, did you tell her she couldn't keep the cab?
Yes.
Well, that's what I just said. What are
But
you
that
saying no for?
$400 wasn't for the following week.
Well, that's what you just said. You said the Friday you got paid, and you allowed them to keep the cab for the following week.
That $400 was exchanged for her check, which she gave me for a security deposit.
Explain that to me, sir. She gave you a check for security
yes,
deposit.
first,
Hold
when
on
she
a second.
started working.
She gave you a check for security deposit. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you held on to the check?
First, I get the check. I tried to cash it and was bad check. So I just gave her the check back and I took $400 instead. It was exactly the same amount of $400.
See, this is all a question of timing, Miss Purdy.
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you understand?
Yes.
What I gather happened is, now it's all coming together, Bird. Trust me, I'm going to explain this to you because I know if you understand that I've made myself clear, and I like to make myself clear. Miss Purdy gave him a total of $1,200. Is that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
She only had the cab for 2 weeks. Is that right?
It was 3 weeks.
You used the cab for 3 weeks?
Yes.
Well, if you used the cab for 3 weeks and you gave him $1,200, what are you complaining about?
The $400 was for deposit for a hold on the check.
No. What I'm asking you, Miss Purdy, is as follows. You say you gave him $1,200.
I gave him $400 every week.
You say you gave him a total of $1,200. All the money that you gave him, for whatever reason, was $1,200.
Well, then that doesn't include the $400. You're right.
Okay, so you gave him $1,600.
Yes, Your Honor.
You gave him $1,600, but you only used the cab for 3 weeks.
Yes, Your Honor.
Got it?
I got it.
The last Friday that she leased the cab, she hands him cash, $400. You take the $400, correct?
Yes, correct.
And then you say to her, you're fired.
No, but
Shh, just a second.
Okay.
You're fired, and I'm keeping this $400 for the security deposit check because you scratched the car. You damaged the car, which is what the security deposit was for. Is that right, sir?
That's right.
Right. It's simple. Don't shake your head no. That's what happened. Because if he had said to her, you were doing the talking, or was he doing the talking?
But I gave
Who
her
was
the check
doing the
back.
talking?
We were together.
To her.
I was talking, he was talking.
All I want to know is, before she handed you the $400, did you say to her, we're firing you today?
No,
Of course not. So you got the cash first.
because I didn't trust her with the check.
You following me, sir? You took her $400 because you were afraid that if you told her she was fired, she wouldn't give you the $400.
No, that's not the reason. I was afraid that the check is bad, like the first one.
Just a second. She didn't give you a check. She was giving you cash.
Yes, but she gave me check first.
I
Because she didn't
understand.
have any money,
Listen.
so she gave me a check.
Listen to me, sir. If you would have said to her, I'm firing you today, you owe me money for scratching the car. I don't know how much that's going to be yet, but you owe me money. We'll have to straighten that out. Do you think she would have given you the $400?
Probably not.
Right. And she was not giving you the $400 for the security deposit. She wasn't. Her intention was giving you the $400 to use the cab for the next week, correct?
Yes.
Of course. Your intention was to take the $400 to hold it so that in case you had damage to the car, which you claim you had, you would have money to fix it. Correct?
But remember about the check. I gave her back $400 in check.
Listen
That was
to me
just
carefully, sir. Don't play slick with me. I know that what you've got fixed in your own mind is you decided to take that moment, August 13th, that's the day you selected to take the money for the bad check. Not the week before, not in the middle of the following week. You said, this is the time I'm going to take the money for the bad check, right?
Yes.
And I'm telling you, you can't do that.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You understand it?
He says former employers Jack and Mike Pulowski owe for taxi cab rent and lost wages.
Anything you want to say to me?
Me?
You.
No, I'm just a witness. I'm supposed
You're
to
a witness to what?
to her accident.
She had an accident with the car. This is not the issue. The issue is who's going to be a plaintiff, be a defendant. He has every right to fire her. What he did was play it slick. What he did was she said, I want to lease the cab for the next week. Here's my $400. He didn't say to her, no, I'm sorry, we're not leasing. Put your hand down. We're not leasing you this cab for another week because we don't like the way you drive. We don't like the way you take care of our property. We're firing you. But we have your bad check here. And you have to make good on the damage that you did to our car because that's our contract. And she says, sue me. That way, he would stand over here and she would stand over here. Instead, he resorted to self-help. He says, I'm going to be slick. I'm going to take her money. I'm going to be very quiet. I'm not telling her we're firing her today. I'm going to take her money, and then she's going to have to come after me for the money. Do we understand each other?
Well, she never said she had an accident, but I saw her have an accident.
I don't care whether she had an accident. I don't care if she ended up with a pole up the tailpipe of a car. Listen to me, sir. All I'm saying is they have a choice. Their choice is to pursue her for the money that they outlaid to fix the car, or they can play it slick by taking her $400 and saying, now you're fired, now I have the money. You follow me?
I hear everything.
You understand it?
I understand it.
Slick doesn't understand it either. They can either be a plaintiff.
I would have fired her. I would have fired her.
They had every right to fire her. You're not hearing it.
I'm hearing it.
No, you're not hearing it. They had every right to fire her as soon as she had an accident. Before I'm speaking, do you hear my mouth moving?
I see it.
Good. They had every right to fire her. They were derelict if they didn't fire her, if they have a cab company and she had an accident. What I'm saying is they had no right.
There was a lot more than an accident. There was a lot more.
Do you?
Excuse me.
Is there something wrong with you?
Is there something wrong with me?
Yes. Are you just try paying attention? They had every right and an obligation to fire her.
That's what I would have done.
They had no right to take her $400 on the day that they intended to fire her, because her intention in giving them the $400 was to allow her to use the cab for the following week. And they took that money under false pretenses. Do you understand? Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $400. That's all.
Step out. Versus Bush. Step forward, please.
Lori Torres is suing her ex-husband, Eric Bush, for the balance on an Isuzu rodeo. Lori says Eric is trying to pull a fast one.
Ms. Torres, this gentleman used to be your husband.
Yes, ma'am.
And he was your husband for a relatively short period of time.
Yes, ma'am.
You and your husband decided that since you had resolved all of the financial issues, there were very limited financial issues, that you got one of those quick divorces. You got in a little kit that you bought in a stationery store, 1, 2, 3, $50 in and out.
Yes, ma'am.
But this was the problem. When you separated, according to what I've read in your complaint, there were 2 cars.
Yes.
The 2 of you decided that he would keep the automobile that was titled in your name.
Yes, ma'am.
There was still a loan outstanding on that automobile, and Mr. Bush agreed that he would take full responsibility for that car by taking care of the payments on the car, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And taking care of the insurance on the car. Generally taking care of everything on the car. It was your car, but it was still in her name because you had lousy credit. So far, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had the car for 6 or 7 months.
Yes.
So you had one car, she had the other. On car that you were driving was now your car, although it was in her name, was stolen.
Yes, ma'am.
When was it stolen?
Around March, end of March.
And in what month did you start driving the car exclusively? What month did you separate and take that car?
October, November.
That's 6 months.
Yes, ma'am.
In the time that you had the car, did your former wife drive the car?
No, ma'am.
When you were living together, did you have insurance on both cars?
Yes, ma'am.
When you took this car, did you get a separate policy of insurance?
No, ma'am.
How did you deal with it?
We both had both vehicles on the same policy.
Who paid the bill?
We split it. She paid what her car was, I paid mine.
So it all worked out beautifully?
Yes.
Until the car got stolen?
Yes.
And there was a deficit that was owed on the car to the loan company.
Yes.
Mr. Bush, you say that there was a $4,000 deficit. You wrote out a check for $2,000, and you said to Ms. Torres, I paid enough. Rest is yours.
No, ma'am. We spoke about this previously before the insurance came back and made the payment to the loan company, which didn't cover the remaining amount. We spoke about that previously, about splitting it.
You did?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, tell me about the conversation.
Well, ma'am, we spoke about it. I told her, you know, the car wasn't in my name. I didn't have the car. You know, he had it before we were married, even together. She made the bad decisions when she purchased the car, which put the car in debt automatically. And I told her, I said, you know, I've taken care of it. We've gone back and forth. You know, I didn't want the vehicle from the get-go, but I took it.
Just a second, listen to me. When you say you had discussions about it, did you come to an agreement? Is that what you're getting to? Or you
yes,
just,
ma'am.
all I'm hearing is you told her. What did she agree to?
We agreed that whatever the insurance company did not pay, we would split it 50-50.
Good. Is that what you agreed to?
No, ma'am. There was no way I was in the position
Why would
to
she
make
do
a deal
that, Mr.
to
Bush?
pay for half of the vehicle.
Why would she do that?
I don't know. Why would she? Because it was her
I don't
vehicle.
believe that she did. No, it was your car. Let me ask you this question, sir. Let's say you kept this car for 20 years, and it became a classic. Not an old wreck, it became a classic. And during that 20 years' time that it's in her name, you finished paying off the car, you put a lot of money into the car, you put new paint into the car, you put new rims in the car, and you're going to sell it. And you have an opportunity to sell that car for a lot more than it was paid for initially. How would you feel if Miss Torres came to you and said, listen, the car's in my name, I want the money? What would you say?
I'd be upset.
Oh, why would you be upset? The car's in her name.
Because I invested time into that.
Well, but you made bad choices.
Yeah.
You invested in a car that wasn't in your name. You invested in it, you put in rims on it, you put in new paint, you put in new insides, and all of a sudden she comes back and she says, listen, it was really nice of you. Car's in my name. I just sold it for $15,000. And you said, well, at least let's split it. She said, I don't want to split it with you. I want the whole thing myself. It's in my name. Isn't that what you're saying to me, Mr. Bush? You're saying I agreed to keep the car. She kept one. I kept the other. I made the payments faithfully, but something bad happened to the car. Why should I be responsible for what happened bad to the car when the car was in her name? Explain to me how that's different from the scenario that I just gave you.
She didn't invest a lot of time and money into that car. I did.
Do you see how foolish you sound, Mr. Bush? Very foolish. Now, you had a choice. You could have said, for all intents and purposes, this is my car, which is really what you said to her back in October. You said, it's my car. I can take my girlfriend out in it. I can take my fiancé out in it. I can take it to my wedding. I can take it on my honeymoon. You have nothing to do with this car. You do have a new girlfriend, right?
No.
Well, you did have, because according to you, just a second. Ah, maybe I'm thinking about the wrong Mr. Bush. Hold on a second. Are you the same Mr. Bush that wrote right here? I'm write a check for $2,000 directly to the finance company. What happened to that girlfriend?
It ended.
Did you give her back the $2,000?
Yes.
Oh, you see, you can't even look at me in the eye and say I gave her back the $2,000.
She got it back.
I doubt it. So, Mr. Bush, you see you did have a choice, sir. If this was your car, you could have increased the premium on the insurance and had a $500 deductible. If the car had been stolen, they would have paid you practically everything for the car, right? That was your choice. You could have paid a little bit more insurance, and the car would have been completely covered. It was your car. That was your agreement with her. It was going to be your car. You just couldn't have a car in your name, couldn't get it financed because you had bad credit. Why did you have such bad credit?
It's not because I had bad credit, ma'am. It's because I had my Harley loan, and the car that she's driving is in my name also. So with 2 vehicle loans to get another vehicle.
Was the Harley insured on the same policy?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. 3 months after he left, he reinsured it through our policy without my knowledge.
Just a second. So you know how to get cars covered, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is this your first marriage?
Yes, ma'am.
How long did it last?
Less than 1 year.
Perfect. You have no children together?
No, ma'am.
Even better. You say somebody was watching over me.
Definitely. Somebody was watching over me.
Right. Slick. How much is owed on the car? How much are they coming after you for?
The remaining balance is $2,226.37.
$2,226?
Yes, ma'am.
How many cents?
37 cents.
Can I see the letter, please?
That's the statement, and that's the remaining balance.
And the name of this loan company is?
Franklin Capital Corporation.
You don't mind if he writes his check directly to them, do you?
No, ma'am, but I'm also suing for the November payment and December payment I made for him.
Oh, you did?
Yes, ma'am.
2226 plus
$535 for November. January's late fees of $15, $528 for February, and $15 late fees for that also.
I have $33.19. Mr. Bush, you have to act responsibly, sir. Ladies aren't going to bail you out forever. You're not that good looking. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,319. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well, we had...
Thank you. Your Honor, this is case number 358 on the calendar in the matter of Otis versus Donaldson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, folks. Have a seat.
Mr. Otis, it is your claim that the defendant who runs a website embarrassed you on her website, and you want to be compensated.
Yes.
Ms. Donaldson said that, well, she didn't really embarrass you on the website. She's going to explain to me what the website is all about, but she said, whether or not you were embarrassed, she is protected by the Constitution of the United States. That's your defense.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me about this website.
But you want to know what happened that day, or how did I get to the website?
Well, why don't, if you don't really understand it, I'll let Miss Donaldson explain the website to me.
Okay. The website is called hotghettomess.com. Hotghettomess.com.
And what is its function?
Well, I started about a year and a half ago, and the function was I was sort of looking at the images that were coming out of largely the African-American community, and I felt like we were bombarded with these negative images, you know, this glamorization of thug life and thug living, the degradation of women, and just this obsession with all that is low and ghetto. So I thought that I would do the website as sort of a social commentary to say that this is not what we're supposed to be doing. We should not be promulgating these images.
Sounds like a laudable goal.
Yes, thank you. And so the website basically consists of people sending in pictures. And what I do is try to take a lot of images and put them in a context. I think we, in the media, and especially the young people with the videos and the movies, we see these images all the time, but no one puts into context and says, this is not good. This is not
Give me
positive.
an example.
I don't have anyone. Oh, well, yes. Okay, here's one.
All right, let me see it.
But I'll also say that in addition to showing hot ghetto mess, I counter that with not ghetto and images that we should strive to be more like. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bird. Here's some of the not ghetto. I sort of counter and try to give a balance. And I also have lyrics on there, lyrics that are being put out, and I contrast positive and negative lyrics. I do movies.
I got it. Just a second.
I'm sorry, I also have a mission statement.
Just a second.
Okay.
Just a second. I don't want to read your mission statement.
Okay, it's just posted on the website so people know what I'm doing.
Okay. It's really a positive message that you're trying to present by showing good examples of behavior, bad examples of behavior, good examples of images, bad examples of images. You don't select the pictures, with the exception of the fact that people send in pictures to you and you put them on the website and say, you're free to comment.
Right.
And somebody sent you in his picture.
Yes, ma'am.
Where did they get the picture from?
It was this online site we have in school. I'm a college student, and it's called Facebook. What it is, it's like a directory of students that go to various colleges.
So you sat for a photograph or submitted a photograph to this book, and from that book, somebody took out the picture and sent it to the defendant.
Yes.
So let me see your page that you're complaining about.
This right here is the profile of myself, and these right here are like the categories, like the people that were centered around mine. So I don't see anything positive around
Well,
those.
let me just see what yours is.
Okay. And it's a little log up there where they get to comment about the pictures.
So she posted this photograph,
Yes.
right? Well, what are you complaining about?
Because she posted my photograph with her company logo on it as if it was her picture. I don't belong on that picture with those people. I mean, look at the category that I'm in.
What category are you in?
I'm in a category called Playboys.
Mr. Rodas,
Yes, ma'am.
isn't a bad picture? It's a very nice likeness, very sexy as a matter of fact. Look like a Playboy. What's wrong with that?
I don't like the fact that she also gives them comments. I mean, it's negative comments. No one said anything good.
Well, that's not her fault. Nobody said anything good. But I wouldn't have said anything bad about this picture. If I would have looked at it, I would have said, too, the handsome guy. Got a sort of a come-hither look. Mr. Rodas, I want you to lighten up a little bit, Mr. Rodas. I don't think, by the way, Miss Donaldson, that your First Amendment argument is 100% valid because Mr. Rodas is not a public figure. But you don't say anything derogatory about him. Now, let me say that if she posted this picture of you and wrote, bank robber, pedophile, something that wasn't true and just nasty, I would mop up the floor with her and give you whatever you wanted because you are not a public figure and she can't print anything that's not true about you. But once you allow your photograph to be out there as part of a student profile, the internet is something that sort of gobbles up all the information that it can get. It's a sponge. I don't know much about the internet because I don't use that machine myself, but I know that you can find out Eddie, you could find out what kind of microbes live 20,000 leagues under the sea, if anybody wants that information. All you have to do is log in the right whatever. So if once you put your picture out there in public space, and it is in public space if you put it out in a book, it might end up here. So you have to be careful. If this isn't a picture that you particularly liked, you shouldn't have put it in your college profile. Who selected the picture?
I did. I loved
Right.
that picture. I
Well,
loved that
if you
picture.
didn't like the picture and if you thought it presented you in a bad light, then I wouldn't have selected this picture.
But I love that picture.
Good. I'm just saying, I don't think there's anything wrong with this picture. And all she's doing, Miss Donaldson is doing, is saying, what do you think of this picture? Is this the way African-American males want to present themselves? I don't see anything wrong with this picture. Now, somebody may say, I'd rather see him in a cap and gown, you know? I would rather see Colin Powell. I mean, he's got a picture of Colin. But that's somebody's opinion. That's not her opinion necessarily. That's somebody else's opinion. I happen to agree with you. It's a nice picture. A lot of people saw it.
Mm-hmm.
Your friends, did they say to you, gee, that's a horrible picture that really depicts you in a terrible light?
No one said that.
No. I mean, you're not doing anything untoward in this picture. So my question is?
My basic thing was I sent her an email asking her to remove it. And it's, I mean, when I found it, it was October 26th. And even as of this morning, when I was at the hotel, it's still there.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
There is no want in this.
Website owner Jamila Donaldson posted his picture on her website.
Now, she doesn't have to remove it. Would it be nice if she removed it if it bothers you?
Yes, it would.
Yeah. Now, we've gotten rid of the legal aspect of this case. Now we're getting to what I consider the moral aspect of the case, and since I have other things to do today, I'm going to address that relatively briefly. If Mr. Otis is troubled by this picture, and I guarantee you there are lots of other pictures that are just waiting to be published on your website, why don't you just take it off?
Because I felt like that would be a dangerous precedent. Then everyone would email me and just tell me to take their pictures down.
Well, they might.
Then hotghettomess.com wouldn't exist.
There are people out there who think that dressing inappropriately, calling attention to themselves, you know, I mean, negative attention to themselves is the way to go. They're not going to be angry. I guarantee you, you will get all of the negative examples that you want on your website because there is no want in this country for stupid people. They're all around us. Touch every third person, you're going to find an idiot. So you don't have to worry that you're not going to have plenty of product. Mr. Otis doesn't want to be used as an example. So when are you going to remove it?
I'll remove it as soon as I get back to my computer.
And I know that with you, that's going to be sometime today.
Yes.
Good. Satisfied?
Not really.
Well, that's too bad. You better get satisfied. That's all. Case is dismissed.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
The site is not meant to defame anyone. It's not meant to...
No, Chant versus King. Step forward.
Dawn Chant is suing her son, 21-year-old Scott King, for a loan to purchase a 1999 Chevy Cavalier. Scott claims the car was a gift.
Miss Chant, this young man is your son.
Yes, ma'am.
And your complaint alleges that he owes you a balance of a car loan.
Correct.
And your son says the car was a gift to him?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Did I ask you a question?
No, I'm sorry.
And while he helped you financially for a while, had nothing to do with this being a loan, it was always a gift, and when he had his expenses got to a point where he could no longer help you out, he just stopped. Is that...
That's
now
correct.
I'm looking at you.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Do you want me to yell at him?
Please.
Who is this person?
This is my son's ex-girlfriend, Jessica.
And who is this?
This is my current girlfriend, Kelly.
Is she here for any particular reason?
More or less. She was witness to an instance over the summer where I actually offered a reconciliation to my mother at a festival downtown. And basically my mother told me she was in the process of filing bankruptcy and that my help was too late and basically shrugged me off and walked away. So at that point, I felt like I was no longer obligated to even try to reconcile or help out the situation at all.
Let me understand this. I'm going to put what you just said to me because I know that one thing you're going to learn as you get older, you have to think about what you say before you say it.
Absolutely.
What you just said to me was, this young lady is a witness to something that happened recently. When you said to your mother, listen, let me try to work this out with you, you know, with the car, and she shrugged you off and said to you, I filed bankruptcy and your help is too late.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Well, that's, Mr. King sort of acknowledges that this was a loan.
Well,
don't well me.
I'm sorry.
That sort of acknowledges that you had some responsibility in your mother's financial situation. You gotta keep it simple. All right, when was the car purchased, Miss Shawn?
August of 2002.
How old are you?
21.
How old were you when the car was purchased?
I believe 19, Your Honor.
How much were the car payments each? King?
$150 maybe, Your Honor. I'm not sure.
Well, you were making the car payments for a while.
Yes, correct. It was a long
Right.
time ago.
Okay. You were making the car payments for a while. So when you say it was $150 a month, was it 150 or 152, 156?
Couldn't tell you, Your Honor. Don't have my checkbooks from back then anymore.
How many years did you make the payments?
I'd probably say 12 months.
When you stopped making the payments, did you notify your mother?
Absolutely.
Is that right?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I found out 3 months after the fact that he stopped making the payments that from the finance company contacted me and said the payments had ceased.
You have the
payment
letter?
was $177.26.
You have the letter from the
No, they
finance-
didn't. They just called me and I made a payment over the phone. He made $3,000 worth of the $6,000 loan.
Well, that's a pretty good track record, Mr. King, for somebody who got a gift. See what I mean?
Yes, Your Honor.
Real cases. Real on Scott King owes for the balance on a car. Dawn claims Scott traded the car in and kept the money.
Now, did you file a bankruptcy last
Absolutely not. I've never filed bankruptcy. I have no intention of ever filing bankruptcy.
What kind of work do you do, Ms. Shawn?
I'm an administrative assistant for a management firm.
Who's driving the car?
He's traded that car in on a new vehicle. Yes, ma'am. I have. He got $4,000 on a trade-in, and instead of paying off the loan, he decided to use that $4,000 to purchase his brand-new Focus that he's now driving. And they gave him $4,000 for the car, and he used it as a down payment.
Yeah? I mean, you're just going to stand there and look foolish?
No, Your Honor. I mean, what do you want me to say about that? Yes, I traded the vehicle in.
Well, if you traded the vehicle in, who did you expect to make the payments after you traded the vehicle in?
When I was living rent-free, I had no issues helping out with the bills. I was working full-time, going to school
Just
full-time.
helping out with the bills is a different story, Mr. King. Helping out with the bills means, Mom, he has $200 or $300 for rent, or he has $100 a week for rent. That's a different helping out with the bills. You made the car payment directly.
It was sporadically. It was, you know, a chunk here, a chunk there.
Well, that's because you were young and stupid. That's not because that's the way people do business.
I know that now, Your Honor.
How much is left owing on the car?
Approximately $3,000.
Let me see.
I'm sorry, $2,000 is my balance right now. Here's my current statement from the finance company showing the balance as of today.
And I'm amazed that you traded this car in, that they let you trade the car in with a lien.
Because it was a personal loan.
May I say something, Your Honor?
It was a personal loan? What do you mean it was a personal loan?
It was a signature loan. There was no collateral.
What do you want to say?
Well, this wasn't financing that I requested. It wasn't I mean, I was at the age where I could require credit myself. This is a loan that she got, and she acted sporadically like, let's do this now, let's get this now, you need this. I wasn't prepared to make this transaction, and it was basically thrown upon me out of need, out of necessity, from her standpoint, that we needed a better ride for me and Jessica to go to college and back and whatnot. And it happened within a day. We got the check in the mail, and the next day I had a car. It was like that quick. And I mean, I don't agree that I didn't ask for the loan. I didn't want the loan. I don't even consider it a loan. It wasn't something that I was part of at all. It was something that was thrown upon me. And now I felt like I was being held accountable, like it being dangled over my head from that point forward. After we got rid of my escort, I had no vehicle. So we had the Cavalier, and I was like, make the payment or you lose it. And I was like, this isn't something I ever wanted or wanted to acquire. If I had it my way, I would have still had my old vehicle, and everything would have been okay from that point forward. I don't feel like this was any kind of my decision, and it was forced upon me.
Was he a difficult pregnancy?
Actually, ma'am.
No, I'm asking you, was he a difficult?
No, he was all of my children were very easy. And he was a very cooperative. I was working as a got it from the dealer. He was going on a test drive. Mom, I really want this car. I tried talking him out of purchasing this car.
Listen to me.
That's not true.
No 19-year-old or 18-year-old says... 18. Yes. Says, Mom, I don't want this nice car. I want to drive the piece of junk that I'm driving. I'm really happy driving around with my girlfriend in this piece of junk that doesn't start all the time.
Absolutely.
Please, I don't even want to think about a nice car. Being 18... I want to take the bus, take the train. With my,
no, ma'am.
That's how we want to go out.
You wouldn't take a bus to school, to high school.
No. I just want to know whether you had any clue in utero that he was going to develop into this.
No, the last thing I want to do is be here against my son, let me tell you.
Excuse me?
The last place I want to be is here with my son.
I don't blame you.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't blame you.
I just can't afford to make payments on something that is non-existent.
Well, I think that he's got some nerve trading it in. That really suggests to me, I'm speaking.
I'm sorry.
That really suggests to me that he is really totally an amoral person. He could have traded it in for something and given you the money.
That would have been really nice.
That would have been, and not put you in a hole. Because according to Freshmouth over here, he at least thought that you were filing for bankruptcy. He at least thought that you were in financial difficulty. And one of the reasons that you were in financial difficulty was because of his actions. Because according to him, new girlfriend over here, whose purpose in being here is to tell me about this conversation that she heard about looking forward to helping his mother, right? Isn't that what he said you were going to tell me?
Right.
Right. Means that he understood that his conduct created a negative situation for you.
And I do admit that.
Oh, get over it.
Ma'am, can I give Scott the title to his Focus? Because it's at my house.
No, I don't want you to give him anything.
This is his title for his car that he's driving now.
Listen to me. I don't want you to give him anything.
Okay.
He's got to understand what aggravation is. And if he doesn't have a title to the car that he's driving now because it came to your house, let him go to motor vehicles, fill out all the paperwork that he has a lost title, that the title never arrived, that he moved. He'll fill out an affidavit that he never got the title because he no longer lives in your house. Let him do something. Do you understand?
I understand.
He has to experience some pain. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $3,000.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
This was the hardest thing I ever done in my life, is take my own son to court.
$3,000 is $3,000. I mean, this is more than just money. It's not dollars and cents.
Scott will always be my son. I'll love him no matter what, unconditionally.
There's lots of, you know, weddings and children and all this stuff that I hope she's...
So, is suing his ex-girlfriend, salon apprentice Michelle Ha, for loss of business as a result of having his cell phone turned off. Michelle is countersuing for an outstanding phone bill and the return of a printer.
Quiet in the courtroom. Now, this is case number 69 on the calendar in the matter of Bledsoe versus Ha. Parties have been sworn in. You may be seated, sir. Have a seat.
Mr. Bledsoe, you and the defendant were involved in a relationship, according to what I read in your complaint. There came a time when you needed you didn't have sufficient credit to get one yourself, and Ms. Ha said that she would get one for you, as long as you agreed to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
She got a second phone on her account, or was this an account that you had solely for him?
No, it was already, and he took it over.
It was already in existence.
Mm-hmm.
And then you started a business.
Correct.
And you didn't have an office, per se, so that your cell phone was your office.
Correct. We're a mobile service.
So that you had business cards and stationery printed up, all with the cell phone number on it.
Yes.
What kind of business is this, Mr. Bledsoe?
We manufacture and install a paint protection film for cars. It's otherwise known as a clear bra. It's on the front of the cars to protect them from getting rock chips.
From getting what?
From getting rock chips and damage on the front of the car.
This is a lucrative business?
Yes.
And then the two of you broke up.
Correct.
This is what your lawsuit is about. You say that because Ms. Ha refused to let you keep the number, to keep the account going, and you lost the number, not only did you lose a lot of business, but all of the cards that you had printed up and the stationery that you had printed up are no good anymore because you had to get a different phone.
Right.
Explain to me, sir, how this is a lawsuit.
All right. We had broken up in March of 2004, and until December of this past year, I was still paying the cell phone bill, still using the phone. She had contacted me and said that she wanted to get the cell phone out of her name, and I said, that's fine. And the following day, we were going to meet down at the Singular store because I needed her to go in and say it was okay for me to have that phone number. And so she agreed to go down there. She didn't show up that day. Then after we tried to meet and she wouldn't come, and eventually she said, I'm not going to give you the number. My brother, who's also a partner in business, also spoke with her on the phone for about 45 minutes one day trying to see what we could do to maintain this number, and she just refused to do it. We ended up that month of February going 33 days without any business due to not having anybody being able to contact us through the new number.
Mr. Bledsoe, let's say I believe everything that you said to me. What you're complaining about is that she wasn't being a nice person, right?
Correct. Correct. She knew without a doubt that without giving me that number, she knew she would hurt business.
Where is her legal obligation to give you that number?
I guess there's no legal obligation that she had to give me that number.
That's true. But Ms. Ha has a counterclaim. She says you weren't paying the bill.
The very last bill, I did not pay the very last bill.
And what month was the very last bill, Mr. Bledsoe?
The cell phone was turned off in middle of January, so it would have been the December to January.
When did you get that bill, Ms. Ha?
Well, I received several bills, and I actually agreed to let him keep the phone as long as he paid for the bill. His brother first told me beg, and I said, nope, I'm not going to give him the phone. And I totally refused, and then finally, I said, you know what, you can keep the phone, just pay for the bill. I texted him, I said, you can keep the phone. He even texted me back and said, I appreciate that you're going to let me keep the phone. I thought everything was going to be squared away, he's going to go pay for it. He still didn't pay for it. So
well, let me see the bill.
This is
just the one. Are they all outstanding bills?
No, I'm sorry.
Well, then just give me one thing. I'm getting older by the minute. You owed her $497.57.
Originally, she had said that her mother was going to use that phone. Therefore, when I switched the numbers over, there wasn't going to be any cancellation fee or anything like that. Because she drew it out over a 3-week period of time, not deciding whether she wanted to give me a number or not, then they canceled the phone and they added on a $200 cancellation.
They canceled the phone after 3 months, not 3 weeks.
Had he been paying the bill regularly?
Yes, well, it was never on time, but he was until the last.
I think, Mr. Bledsoe, that after she said she would let you keep the phone, she decided against it.
If you like, if I could bring my brother up, because he spoke with her directly about that question.
Your name?
My name's Craig Bledsoe. I spoke to Michelle. You know, she agreed to give the number, and I don't know what her problem was, but all of a sudden she wouldn't do it. And then she would, and then she wouldn't.
Just a second.
Yes.
That's a lie.
Mr. Bledsoe.
Yes.
Try looking at me.
Okay.
This is not an audition for an acting class, sir.
Okay.
Did she ever say to you, you owe a bill?
No.
Is not an answer.
Oh,
did she ever say to you, you owe a bill?
She never said to me that I owe a bill. Yes, he owes a bill.
Okay.
Correct.
Now, come back to you. Did you ever have a discussion about paying the bill?
Yes.
Well, that's the problem, sir. There was some misunderstanding and miscommunication about paying the last bill.
I had no problem paying the bill and, in fact, offered her money so that we could have that phone because that phone number is so crucial to our business.
Mr. Bledsoe, how many months after you broke up, or she broke up with you, who broke up with who?
It was mutual.
Mutual. How much after the breakup did this incident occur in December? When did you break up?
In March.
So for a long time, you had the phone.
That's correct.
And for a long time, there was no problem.
Correct. The problem arose when Michelle and I were dating. We had had 2 cars repossessed. I felt responsible for it. Therefore, I had told her that I would give her $250 a month towards her car payment as long as I could afford it. Therefore...
What do you mean you felt responsible? Why did you feel responsible?
Because we were living together and I was using the car.
Both cars.
And so therefore...
Go ahead. He was using...
I got him 2 cars, and he got them both repossessed. And countless of that, like credit cards he used to take to strip clubs, everything. And I saw a statement. Yeah.
Not sure.
Just to sit down. Now I don't need you anymore.
Fair enough, but I got a lot to say about her side of the story.
I mean, I would see things on my statements.
So that things started to get nasty before.
Things have been nasty.
Is that right? Before. In any event, Mr. Bledsoe, Ms. Ha has no legal obligation to permit you to keep a cell phone in her name and allow you to keep the number. There is no legal obligation. Being a nice person, she could have done it. She chose not to, even if there wasn't an issue with regard to the final cell phone bill. So you don't have a legal case against her. Moral, maybe, but this is not moral court. It's a legal court. Understood?
Yes.
Very good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
That's your printer?
We'd like to inform you ex-girlfriend Michelle Ha owes for maliciously cutting off his cell phone. Michelle says Jared tried to skip out on the bill.
Now, let's get to your counterclaim. As I said, I'm not deciding whether or not you were nice, you were not nice. All I want to know is how much he owes on the past due phone bill.
$497.
No, that's with the cancellation fee. I want it without the cancellation fee.
$342.48.
Good. $342.48. That's what you owe, sir.
We had brought this, we had had a dispute about printer and a computer, so we had brought that to give to her.
Officer Bird will take care of that. That's your printer?
Can you turn it around, please? No, that's not my printer.
Oh, gosh.
See, I have a printer. It's a gray and black one, and when I got a computer, it came with it. And then when he gave me back my computer, he never gave me back my printer. And I have the receipt right here.
Do me a favor, Bird. Take a look at the receipt that she has and see if it's the same make and model. Oh, I can't believe I went to law school for this.
That was Lexmark.
Yeah.
Mr. Bledsoe, does this one work or not work?
It works.
Good. Give it to her. Perfect. He owes you $342.48 for his phone bill. There's your printer. Goodbye. Good luck. Are you back in business?
Yes, we are.
Good. Good luck to you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I wanted to do the civil.
Water Mayfield, step forward, please.
26-year-old retail salesperson Courtney Austin is suing her former friend, maintenance technician Fred Atwater, and his fiancée, 23-year-old restaurant manager Sylvia Mayfield, for collect calls from jail, gas money, and lost wages. Fred and Sylvia are countersuing for harassment.
Miss Austin.
Yes.
According to your complaint, you and Mr. Atwater dated for a little while. Then he went to jail.
Yes.
Why is that funny?
Because we never dated, Your Honor. It was just
Well,
only...
I said to her, according to her complaint,
Okay.
the two of you dated for a while and then you went to jail. I didn't think the going to jail part was funny. And while he was in jail, he made a series of collect calls to you.
Correct.
And it went something like this. He would call you and ask you to connect him on a three-way call
Correct.
to this lady here.
Initially, it was his sister.
Well, that's what he told you.
That's what he told me.
But I said, to this lady here.
Yes.
Who happens to be his fiancée or girlfriend.
Yes.
Shh. Now, every time he called you collect, it cost you $2.70.
Correct.
So you want him to pay for that.
Correct.
And then after you found out that he had this girlfriend, somehow you became friendly enough with her so that she asked you to drive her up to jail to pay his bail.
Correct.
And not only did you do that once, you did it twice.
Correct.
And now, Miss Austin, you're bothering me because you want the money back for the collect calls that you accepted and your gas and time when you took her to jail.
That he said he was going to.
Let's go back. You met him when?
Introduced herself by leaving this note on my car.
Okay. Where did he see you?
He works in my complex.
Okay. So it worked. I didn't have to see that. He left a note on your car.
Yes.
You got to know him. According to him, you were friends. According to you, you dated for a little while. What I want to get to is, because I have other things to do today, and this isn't particularly fascinating to me. When women do stupid things, I get frustrated. At first, he told you, when he went to jail, by the way, what did you go to jail for?
Child support order.
Drug abuse and hitting her.
Was it a civil commitment or a criminal commitment?
It was civil.
Civil.
You hit her, and that's how
Shut
you got
up,
in
shut
jail.
up! He told you when he called you from jail that the person he wanted you to connect him to was his sister. How many such phone calls did you accept under the assumption that you were connecting him to his sister?
One.
And after that, you heard that it was his girlfriend.
No, I didn't know it was his girlfriend until she called me back trying to figure out who was three-waying the calls for him.
And how many calls had you accepted up until that time?
2 or 3.
And how many did you accept after you knew that she was the girlfriend?
It says here 35.
So, now we know that he's lied to you.
Yes.
And he's in jail.
Yes.
Why would you believe that he's going to pay you for these calls when he's lied to you about who the person is?
He's not from that area. Me just moving from Los Angeles to Georgia, I was trying to put myself in his position, needing a friend. So I was trying to look out for him. It wasn't like I was trying to make him my husband, my man, or anything like that. We were friends. And in that, he told me that he had after I found out he had a girlfriend, and I took her, I felt sorry for her that she was with him.
You know who the only person I feel sorry for right now? Miss Austin. How much did it cost you, all this stupidity of yours? How much in phone calls?
Between 150 and 175.
No. Between 150 and 175 is not an answer when you're in court.
150.
$150.
Now, Mr. Atwater,
Yes, ma'am.
who's supposed to pay that $150?
Well, since we were friends, I appreciate the call she did herself for me, but
Why didn't she collect the call?
They ain't have a phone at the house.
Quiet.
for one thing, Your Honor, we had a cell phone. We didn't have a household phone then at the time, and we can't make collect calls to her. So I thought I would call her, and she was notified before she accepted the call, $270 per call. She had an option to hang
It
up
does
or
not
accept
say that.
If you say one more word, I'm just going to throw you out. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
Good.
She was opted to either accept the call or not to.
Did you tell her that you would pay her back for
I
these
never
calls?
told Courtney I would pay her. She told me every time I would call her and she do the three-way, she'll tell me to hang up and call right back.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, like you get 15 minutes for $2.70. So after the 15 minutes is up, she would tell me to hang up and call right back.
And you would do that?
Yes.
And
She'd accept the call every time.
I didn't.
Sorry.
Am I looking in your direction?
No.
Mr. Atwater?
Yes.
Is it your statement to me that you never said to Miss Austin, please do this collect calls because we have no phone in our house, so if you do this for me, I'll pay you back when I get out?
I never told her I was going to pay her.
I don't believe that. See, that I don't believe. That I don't believe. I believe you told her you'd pay her back for the phone calls. That's
Your
one
Honor.
bit of stupidity. You may not have meant it, Mr. Atwater.
Your Honor,
I'm speaking. What did you ever do for her?
I never did anything for her.
That's what I mean. Why in the world?
Because we were
I'm
friends, Your
I'm
Honor. That's all
speaking.
we were, friends.
I'm speaking. Did Miss Mayfield know that she was your friend?
Not at the time. She was in Miami at the time.
Exactly.
And I did.
Why? Just to answer my question. I said, did Miss Mayfield know that Miss Austin was your fiancée? And you said no. That's the only information that I need. Now, as far as taking her to and from the jail, tell me how that came about. Fast!
Basically, he told me that he was going to pay me the money when he got out. She needed to go pay his bail money. She had $500. His employer put up the other $500. I took her to go get the money from the employer. We went. We didn't make it that day. I had to take her back the next day to go pay his bail. They wouldn't release him because he had a drug charge and he had hit her, which is originally why he went into jail. Then we had to go the next day, something about getting his clothes because the county would put him in jail.
You didn't have to do anything.
No, I didn't. I did it out of goodness of my heart.
That's right. So then don't bother me about it if you did it
No,
out of the
he
goodness
told
of
me
your
he was
heart.
going to pay me for it. It wasn't like he said he was going to pay
Miss
me for my
Austin?
trouble.
Miss Austin, you did not have a contract with Mr. Atwater, and you certainly
I
didn't
do
have
have one
contract
right
with
here.
Mayfield.
Yes, I do.
Good, then let me see it. Exactly what I said, Miss Austin. It says you can threaten us all you want. We'll pay for your phone bill. Nowhere does it say that they're going to pay for you taking her to and from jail. I believe that he said to you, if you accept these collect calls, I'll
Your Honor, may I speak?
put your hand down. That he agreed to pay for the phone bill, but for nothing else. So that's your claim, $150. Now you have a counterclaim for harassment.
Yes.
Get to it fast.
Okay, and that statement right there, what she has on the second page, that was after she brought the cops to our house. So we put it in writing. The cop told her to go ahead and take it to the courtroom and file the claim. And she did that.
Just a second.
And she did
You
that.
said here, I'm going to pay you the money for the phone bill. Stop bothering me.
Exactly.
Right.
But she never stopped.
Let's get to your counterclaim. You've got a counterclaim for harassment for $500. I'm going to hear you. 10 seconds or less.
The harassing emails, taking notes to our door, bringing the cops to our apartment complex, where that is not tolerated. We cannot have no kind of commotion going on.
Why didn't you pay her phone bill?
Because I never did tell her that, Your Honor.
I don't
never did
believe
tell
that.
her.
And she was trying to collect a debt. You're not supposed to take advantage of people, Mr. Atwater.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to take advantage of people's feelings and emotions. One girlfriend is in Florida, one friend is here. Friendships usually work both ways. She does a favor for you, you do a favor for her. You did no favors for her. You were a taker. You have to pay her back for the phone. Put your hand down. Are you still bothering them?
No.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $150. Your counterclaim's dismissed.
Thank you. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated. Have a seat.
Ms. Tu, you provided daycare for Miss Myers'
Yes,
baby,
ma'am.
child, toddler?
Yes, 4 years old at a time.
And it is your claim that she owes you some money. She owes you some money for daycare that you actually provided.
Right.
And then punitive damages because you claim that she defamed you. When, after you sued her for the money that she owed you in small claims court, she called the state and reported that your daycare facility was...
Yes, ma'am.
That's what the case is about. And Miss Myers every right to call the state with regard to the unsanitary and unsafe conditions in your house, because that's why she removed her child from your daycare facility, and she doesn't owe you anything.
Yes.
When did you bring your 4-year-old to Miss Chu to babysit?
January 17th.
Of
2005, yes, ma'am.
And how did you find her?
A co-worker of mine had her child in her care.
And she was satisfied?
Well, she worked late hours and she didn't have no other choice, ma'am.
Well, you wouldn't have put your child in a daycare facility unless you said to this co-worker of yours, are you satisfied?
Quite honestly, I was desperate to find a daycare. I just started at my job at the beginning of December, and I needed to have daycare. Since I just started, I was not financially free to pay $450 up front for other daycares.
So?
So I talked to her, and she said, well, go ahead and try it. Mrs. Chu talked to me. She said, right now I'm kind of full. I have too many children, but it's okay. I can take him. It's okay. I got myself in trouble before.
How many children did she have at the time?
I'm not sure. Like
You
I said,
didn't ask?
I wasn't in the daycare facility.
What do you mean you weren't in the facility?
We just kind of met at a stable and talked about stuff like this.
You met where?
At a stable. I was going to buy her horse. That's how we met initially.
I thought you met initially through a coworker.
Yes, ma'am. The co-worker has a horse. Miss Chu has a horse. And I wanted to purchase a horse. Her
You
horse
wanted
was
to
for
buy
sale.
a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
You didn't have $450 to pay up front for a daycare? You wanted to buy a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
Explain that to me.
I was looking into buying a horse. But
For what?
To ride, ma'am.
Keep going.
Like I said, I went to look for daycare.
Oh, for you were, last time you spoke to me, you were looking for a horse.
Yes, ma'am.
And
From
you
there
met her
we
at a
talked.
stable. And you hadn't been to the daycare facility yet. Stop
No,
playing
ma'am.
around with your hair.
I called her on a Saturday. I said, you know, I know you have a daycare. Is it possible for Jason to attend your daycare? She said, come on by on Monday. I went there, dropped him off.
Who would babysat for your son when you started working?
His godmother.
Well, what happened to her babysitting?
She had another job coming up that she was working, and she said she can't do it no more.
So you found her and you dropped him off without ever having seen the inside of the facility?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a husband?
Yes, ma'am.
What does he do for a living?
He's working in retail.
Did you end up buying her horse?
No, ma'am.
You have a horse?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you buy it?
Late February.
How much did you pay for it?
$600.
Where do you keep it?
Sally Hill.
At a stable?
Yes, ma'am.
And how much do you pay to board the horse at the stable?
$225.
A month?
Yes, ma'am.
You got your priorities a little bit backwards, Miss Mayor. You got your priorities backwards. Before you take a horse, you find an appropriate daycare for your child. Not one where you don't have to pay up front. Because according to the figures that you just gave me, you had $600 to buy a horse and $225 to board the horse, and you didn't have $450 to pay for what you might consider an appropriate daycare up front. You have other children?
Yes, ma'am.
How many?
2.
How old are they?
15 and 10.
So you got a lot of extra money. Must have a lot of extra money if you have a horse. Oh, now, I'm not getting into how many children you're licensed for. I'm not getting into any of that. Just tell me, how long have you been a daycare provider?
7 years.
When did she first bring her son into your daycare?
In January.
And how long did you take care of him?
She had him out for a week and Good Friday. And then she brought him back, and it was April 4th, and he was in my home April 4th and April 5th. And on April 5th, that was the last day that she brought him. So,
how much did she owe you when she took her son out on the 5th?
She owed me for the 28th week, and then she also owed me for that week that he was in my care, but she took him out.
Okay, let me see the contract that she signed. And it's $85 a week.
Yes, ma'am.
So she owes you, according to you, for 2 weeks.
She owes me for 2 weeks and then a 2 weeks notice, which is also in the contract because she quit without any kind of notice to me. She sent me a letter on 4/6 by certified mail saying, thank you for your services. Basically, I don't need you anymore.
Can I see the letter she sent?
And then I returned with another letter to her explaining what I was expecting of her at that time. And in all honesty, Judge, I wasn't going to do another thing with her because when you're a daycare, you are...
Right. I got it. But then she went and filed a complaint.
Right. And I've been in business a long time, and I am inspected by the state and the health department 6 months every year, and they have never had a problem with my home.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
He was with me 5 months.
June 2 says ex-client Pat Meyer owes for daycare fees and defamation of character as a result of filing false charges with the state. Pat claims June's parrot bit her son.
Go ahead.
Okay, the reason why we pulled Jason out of her care was because her macaw parrot bit Jason. He had the chance to walk across the dining room table, walk up his arm, and bite him because he wouldn't let go of his pretzel. I've got the pictures for it.
Okay.
And another child also bit him in the arm, and we just...
The parrot bite.
6 months prior.
Just a second. Oh. When was the parrot bite?
It happened in March.
And what about the bite from the child?
The bite happened on the 5th of April. That's where we pulled him out.
Tell me about the bite.
The bite from the child?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and let me just notate, the bite from the bird was not a bite, and he was not on my dining room table.
I don't care where he was. Shouldn't have been around children.
But
shouldn't have been around children.
Okay, well, I'll agree with that.
Good.
Okay. As far as the bite from the child...
But that didn't precipitate her removing the child from your care.
Right. She was with me 5 months, or 4 months after that.
No, she wasn't.
Well...
Listen to me.
Okay.
Don't be a fast talker. I don't like fast talkers. Child started with you in January, February, and March.
Mm-hmm.
That's 3 months.
Correct.
So don't say it was 6 months before, because 6 months the child wasn't in your care.
That's true, but...
Okay. But she still brought the child back after the incident with the bird, but did not want to return with the child almost immediately after the bite.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'll explain that, too.
Go ahead.
Okay. JJ was in my home, and that is why I brought my daughter today, because she's a witness to his behavior. And I have a little boy who is hearing impaired. And when the little boy came into the house that day, JJ immediately knocked him down. I mean, just pushed him down for no reason. I have basically 2 rooms, and each go into each other. And the next thing I know, the little boy who is hearing impaired comes running out of that room again because JJ pushed him down again. She didn't also tell you the story that her child punched that little boy in the face.
That day, on the 4th.
Yes, 5th.
On the 5th, the little boy retaliated by biting him.
Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what happened.
Where were you?
I was standing right there. Next thing I know, her son punches, and he grabs his arm and bites him that quick. I mean, it happens so very quick.
Okay, fine. Now, mother, she's upset. Child was bitten by another child. Pulls the child out. Fine. You called the authorities? You called the authorities?
Yes, ma'am.
When?
I don't remember. I really don't. Maybe 2 weeks afterwards.
Why?
Because I don't feel that she's taken the care that she should by the daycare that she has for the children.
Well, why didn't you call the authorities the next day?
I took the day off Wednesday to find a new daycare, and I was...
That doesn't answer my question.
I just didn't have the time.
Well, what inspired you to call 2 weeks later? When did you receive the small claim summons that she filed against you? All that's documented, so
yes,
you might as well...
I don't know the date.
But the phone call that you made to the authorities was after that.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes.
Now I'd like to see the report from the authorities when they came to do the inspection.
The first one's the dog catcher report, and the second one is the health inspector.
Who's taking care of your son now?
He's at home with his siblings and Mrs. Oliver again.
What did you do between the 6th of April and the 27th of May?
Oh, I'm sorry. He was in Koala Daycare.
How much did they charge you?
$95 a week.
And if you were unhappy with this Tuesday care, you could have put him in for an extra $10 a week to this other daycare.
I wasn't aware of that daycare at that time.
You should have been. If you spent a little more time choosing an appropriate daycare rather than shopping around for a horse, you could have been aware of the best daycare in your vicinity. I have, very little patience for somebody who spends any extra time on anything else when they have 3 children looking for quality daycare, which should be your first priority. First, not third, not second.
And I was doing the best I could by giving
You
them
don't
home
tell me the
daycare.
best you could. The best you could is, you just told me that everybody else wanted up front $450, and she didn't, so you chose her. And yet at the same time, you were looking for a horse, and you bought a horse for $600.
Yes, ma'am.
Same month.
No, ma'am, it was the end of February.
A month later.
Yes, ma'am.
She owes you $340 for the daycare.
Yes, ma'am.
She also owes you $300 because I believe she filed this in retaliation and nothing more for your filing a small claim summons against her. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $600. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out. Out of English versus Murray. Step forward, please.
Bartender Dana English is suing his former friend, 25-year-old bartender Lara Murray, for a series of unpaid loans. Dana claims Lara used him.
Mr. English, you claim a series of loans to the defendant who was a friend of yours.
Yes.
Miss Murray says that you were a kind friend. You gave her money. That's exactly what you did. You gave her money, and everything that you gave her were gifts. There was never any intention for her to repay those gifts, and it only became a problem when she rebuffed your romantic intentions.
No.
Okay. How old are you, Mr. English?
I'll be 48 in 2 weeks.
And how old are you, Miss Murray?
I'm 25.
Okay. Me.
You got to find friends your own age, Mr. English. Then this sort of thing doesn't happen. According to what I read in your complaint, you hired Miss Murray to work as a hostess in a restaurant that you manage.
She was hired at the restaurant I worked at, yes.
When?
October.
Of what year?
2003.
When was the first loan you made her?
The insurance payment of October of 04.
How much?
$120.
And what was the arrangement, according to you, for repayment of that loan?
Lara said she would repay me the money because she didn't have it. She wasn't working that much.
So she said eventually she'll pay
Yes.
you back. When was the next loan?
It was for December, also a car insurance payment of $120.
December of 2004?
Yes.
Between October and December, had she paid you any money back of the first loan?
No.
When was the next loan?
The next loan was a car company called about the loan for her car. They didn't say it was her car. It was a $300 payment that I made, put the account number on it, and it was for her car, not mine. When I told Lara about this, she said she would repay me the $300.
So you made a car payment and they put it in the wrong account?
Yes.
Oh.
It had her account number on it, not mine, on the check.
How did you have her account number?
Because I said the loan company called me and told me she was behind on her
Why
behind
would
on
they
a car
call you?
payment. Because I had co-signed the loan.
Oh, just when did you co-sign the loan, sir?
That would be in September of 2004. That was the second car I co-signed for her.
When was the first car that you co-signed for her?
May of 2003.
May I say something?
Not yet.
Okay.
What other monies did you loan to her, sir?
Lara came to live with me towards the end of January, and she needed clothes for work. We went out shopping, and I spent $118 on clothes for her to go to work.
Between October of 2004, when you gave her the first loan, and January of 2005, when you loaned her money to buy clothes, when she came to live with you, had she paid you back any of the original $120?
No, ma'am.
English?
I was a very good friend, and I got used.
Fine. So what are you doing in court?
Lara told me she'd pay me back. She just then said, I called her. She called me one night and said, sue me. So I sued her.
Now I'll hear you.
Well, I started working at the restaurant in October of 2002. So that's when I met him, and I've been friends with him ever since. I got my car in May of 2003, and I was short some money, and he said that if I needed it, that he could help me out. Anytime he'd buy me Christmas presents, birthday presents.
He's
he'd
not
buy me
talking about
cards.
Christmas or birthday presents, Miss Murray.
Oh, I know.
He's talking about cash.
Yeah. Anytime I needed help, that I was saying that I needed help with my family, he was always there. He was always calling me, coming over, helping take my aunt to the grocery store. He doesn't have any other friends. I have a lot of friends, and when I started hanging out with my other friends more and not hanging out with him, his feelings got hurt, and then that's when he would start saying, well, I want this back, or I want to hang out with you at least one day a week. Then it started getting weird, and I started pulling back because I looked to him like a father figure. He is. He's like a father figure.
Why did you move into his house in January?
I only stayed. I was fighting with my family. I didn't move in. I was only there a couple of days.
She was there
How
for
long?
approximately 4 to 5 weeks.
No, I don't think
Off and on, yes.
Off and on.
But she was there.
Not straight.
No.
She went out and would stay away for days at a time and then come back.
Right.
Mr. English, you play around with a baby. This is you get babyish behavior.
Well, when she said she's going to repay me, I expect her to be repaid.
Well, Mr. English, I have to determine whether you had a legitimate expectation of being repaid. And when somebody borrows money in October and they don't pay you back, you don't lend them more money in December,
Well, when she
and
keeps
more, I'm speaking, and more money in January. You don't do that because then you don't have an expectation of being paid back. Eventually she'll pay you back if you live that long. Not from this court. You gotta learn, wisen up. She's a baby. She's still out there, you know, growing up. You're all grown up. Fortunately, the whole business cost you $797?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you say, $797. It was a cheap lesson. Is she making car payments?
No.
What happened to the car?
The car was repoed. It's about being auctioned off today to make up the money that she owes on the car loans and the car being towed. She totaled the car. She wrecked both cars.
Find a nice contemporary friend. Thank you very much. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
Well,
Yeah, this is case number 138 on the calendar in the matter of Lyons versus Lyons. Party's been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Ms. Lyons, the defendant is your soon-to-be former daughter-in-law. She and your son have one child together? Yes. And according to your complaint, you believe she should be responsible for paying all of your legal fees and other expenses as a result of false charges that you claim she filed against you. Ms. Lyons says that while she did file charges against you, your conduct warranted those charges. It was a terrible experience that you and your family put her through, and she's going to describe it to me. So I think we're going to start with you. How long have you and Mrs. Lyons' son been married?
We've been married for almost 2 years now.
He is currently incarcerated, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I read here, and he's incarcerated because according to at least what I surmise, he was on probation.
Yes, ma'am.
When this incident occurred, and as a result of this incident, he was put back into jail to finish his sentence. He had already served part of his sentence. Is that right, madam?
Yes.
What was he incarcerated for? Do you know?
Originally, when he was 17, he was involved in a crime. It was a robbery.
Is that the only time he was arrested?
Yes. But the only time in his whole life? I'm sorry, misunderstood.
Yes, the only time in his whole life.
No, and well, in his
How
adult
old is
life,
he now?
He will be 21 in July.
Between 17 and 21, how many times was he arrested, Miss Lyons?
He was violated on probation when he reported to his probation officer because he failed a drug test for marijuana. Then this incident was the next time.
When he was violated, did he go back to prison?
He did. He went into a drug rehab program.
For how long?
6 months.
And then this incident?
Yes, ma'am.
Which sent him back to prison for how many years?
22 months.
Okay. Now, according to what I read in your answer, when your husband came out of his drug rehab, everything was okay? I mean, you were separated. You weren't together anymore.
Correct.
Is that right? But he was seeing your son?
Yes. Yes, he was.
What happened?
My roommate and I, we were going through some financial problems at that time, and I was not getting any kind of support from Richard, so I was pretty much forced to move to Gainesville with my brother until I got on my feet again, and then that's when Tanya and I had moved.
When did you move to Gainesville?
I believe it was between June 25th and June 30th.
According to you, you called the next day and let your husband know where you were living.
That's correct.
What happened next?
He got very furious on the telephone and basically started yelling at me and threatening me, telling me that when he got hold of Jeremy, I would not see him anymore, and just made a lot of verbal threats and did a lot of name-calling.
Now we're going to get to this incident that caused the problem, Mrs. Lyons. Why don't you tell me what happened?
Well, we sought counsel with a family law lawyer who advised us that because Lindsay and Richard were still married, because there was no case in court, he had as much legal right to his son as she did.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided Wednesday night that we would go Thursday to pick up Jeremy in Gainesville.
Who did Jeremy live with that your son was in drug rehab?
He lived primarily with his mother.
And before he went into drug rehab, was he working?
Yes, he was.
What kind of work was he doing?
He was helping his father. My husband was doing maintenance work. We ran an apartment complex.
So he wasn't doing much?
Actually, he was also working a sales job.
So he was working a lot?
Yes, ma'am.
And who was watching Jeremy while he was working a lot?
Well, if Lindsay was not working at that time, we were watching. If Lindsay was not working, she was watching.
Right.
If she was working, we watched.
So let's get the story straight, Miss Lyon. So the child is 2 years old, and his primary physical caretaker during those 2 years has been his mother. And you, your husband, and your son decided after you spoke to a lawyer to go and physically retrieve the child from his mother. That's what you decided to do.
Yes.
Tell me what happened.
We arrived at her brother's house, which was a small trailer that had 3 other adults and an infant child living there as well. Her brother's girlfriend, Amanda, answered the door, told us that Lindsay and Tanya and Jeremy had gone on the city bus downtown and to sell their blood for money. They were broke. So we went to the nearest bus stop. We saw Lindsay and Tanya and Jeremy coming up the road. Richard got out of the car, crossed the street to their side of the road. Lindsay handed Jeremy to Richard.
Excuse me, that is incorrect.
Just a second. Okay, go ahead.
They stood there and talked for a few moments. And after a few moments, Richard turned and walked across the street to where we were parked.
Because you were going to take the baby.
We were going to visit with the baby.
No, that's not what you told me a moment ago. What you told me a moment ago was
yes,
you were going to take the baby
for visitation. Yes, ma'am.
Baloney!
I'm sorry.
You weren't taking him for a visit. You were taking him back to where you lived so that when you had a custody case, you would have physical custody. The child would be in the physical custody of his father. I've been in this business a long time.
Yes, ma'am, I know you have.
So don't try to sugarcoat it. It was your intention to go there. You waited for them at the bus stop to take the child.
Yes.
Now continue as to what happened.
Well, Lindsay came across the street. She screamed at Richard.
What did she scream?
The first thing I heard was, "You're not taking my son." And he wrapped his arms around the baby, turned around to protect him. She was pulling on Jeremy's arm. The next thing I heard was, "Jady, Richard, get off my son." Her lover jumped on Richard. My husband got out of the car, pushed her off of Richard. She said something to him. He said, "Don't hit me." Got in the car.
Your husband was ultimately convicted, correct?
Of a misdemeanor.
He was convicted. Misdemeanor is a crime.
Yes, ma'am, I know that.
Against Tanya.
Against Tanya, yes.
You were arrested.
Yes, we were.
You ultimately took the 2-year-old because you were able to get her off you. According to you, the car started and you were still hanging out of the car. Is that right?
Both Tanya and I were, yes.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
You went to kidnap him. And now you're complaining that you were arrested and you had legal fees. That comes under the category of being too bad.
And later today,
she walked in, she called.
Lindsay Lyons had her falsely arrested. Lindsay says Deborah tried to kidnap her 2-year-old son.
They left?
Correct.
You called the police?
Mm-hmm. I sure did.
How long did they have Jeremy in their custody before he was returned to you?
They had him about a day and a half. They had left with Jeremy. There was no car seat in the vehicle when they finally took off with him. And they, as far as I knew from what the police told me, they were arrested the very next day, and I was able to pick my son up that night.
You understand that I have no sympathy for you whatsoever.
I can tell.
The only one that I have sympathy for is this little 2-year-old.
He was a year old at the time.
I don't care if he was a year old or if he's 15 months old.
Yeah,
That's the only one that I have.
Richard was part of his life, Your Honor.
Madam, Richard hadn't been part of his life for 6 months because he was in a drug rehab program.
No,
he was living with his mother. And you are pretty thick if you don't get the fact that if you have a grandchild and you want to see that grandchild and you want to be part of that grandchild's life, which is something that you enjoyed. I assume that while your son was in rehab, you saw him
right, I took
regularly.
To see my
regularly. Son. So it's not as if his wife was trying to prevent you from visiting with him during the course of the 6 months immediately preceding this custodial interference, but you injected yourself. And instead of doing something that the law proposes is the appropriate way of dealing with a custody dispute, which is you go immediately to Gainesville or to Tampa, and your son files a petition for custody, and you have a hearing, you went to kidnap him. And now you're complaining that you were arrested and you had legal fees. That comes under the category of being too bad. Okay? Too bad. Okay? You have no case, Miss Lyons. You should have let the courts resolve this issue. Whatever you may think of your future former daughter-in-law's lifestyle doesn't impact the fact that she has been the child's primary physical caretaker. And if you want to be a good grandma, you help her.
Which I did.
And you continue to do that. How many times have you been arrested in your life?
Never.
That's one parent. The other one has been arrested for a violent crime, has been violated on probation twice, and is currently incarcerated. Judge, hearing that case? No issue. Okay? No issue. You have no case, Miss Lyons. It's unfortunate for you. Case is dismissed. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
I disagree with her lifestyle choices.
I was very sad, and I knew, but my main concern was my son.
I have very strong beliefs and faiths, and I find it to be an abomination.
My gut tells me that I don't want to have anything to do with them.
She moved her lover in and just flaunted it in our face.
I don't want to put my son in that situation ever again.
My son still has father's rights, and he will sue for them, and I believe he will get them. And as long as he has rights, we will too.
And now the next case.
All parties in the matter of Curry versus Orr. Step forward, please.
Shirley Curry is suing her son's ex-girlfriend, Nikki Orr, for trashing her home. Nikki claims she found Shirley's son in bed with another woman.
Miss Curry, I assume, based upon your complaint, that you were not at home to Kurt. Is that right?
Correct.
This is your son?
Yes.
But he was home?
Yes.
On what date did this incident occur?
The 28th of May.
And prior to that, how long had your son and Miss Orr been involved?
3 years.
And you liked her?
Yes.
She's a responsible gal?
From what I can tell.
Do you work?
No.
What do you do?
Just homemaker.
A homemaker of?
I receive SSI.
What's the nature of your disability?
Legally blind in the left eye.
Do you drive a car?
No.
How did you get to the plaintiff's house on the 28th of May?
I caught the bus from Cincinnati, Ohio to Kentucky.
How long a ride was that?
15 minutes.
Now, before you caught the bus, that 15 minutes, you had been drinking?
Yes, ma'am.
A lot?
Yes, ma'am.
Why were you drinking so much?
Because I heard by a friend that he was cheating on me, so I went to go confront him.
And what did you find when you got to Miss Curry's house? You
He was
found
in a
Mr.
bed.
Hornsby there with, who were you there with, sir? That's not a smile.
Well, I was with a friend of mine.
What's her name?
Kim.
Tell me what happened, Mr. Hornsby.
First of all, she came in. The door was open. She walked in. She caught me and Kim in the bed together, and she just started going crazy. She was trying to cut me, cut Kim, cut my mama furniture up, and just start cussing and acting a fool. And there wasn't even no cause for it, for real.
Did you tell Miss Orr before May 28th that you were going to see other people?
I told her that we can be friends, and if she want to be with me, that it's going to be an open relationship. But right now, it's best that we just be friends.
Why did you tell her that after 3 years?
I met somebody that was more interesting.
Did you tell Miss Orr that you met somebody that was more interesting, or did you just tell her you wanted to be friends?
I just told her I wanted to be friends because me and Kim is friends.
Well, that was friendly if she found you in bed together. That was, I mean, you know, I have friends with Bird.
But my whole point is, if we friends, it shouldn't matter who I'm in bed with.
When you've had an intimate relationship with somebody for 3 years, do you think that she had other friends during the course of that 3 years?
I think she did.
Really?
Aw, no.
I think she did.
I'm not sure. In any event, it is your claim, Miss Curry, that Miss Orr is responsible for destroying your house.
Yes.
Miss Orr says it wasn't her, it was somebody else.
Yes.
Can I see the pictures? Ooh. Did you call the police, Mr. Ormsby?
No, because she has kids, and I didn't want to see her go to jail and have the boys messed up, so I begged my mom, because my mom wanted to call the police. As soon as she got home, she went ballistic, so I had to slow her down, stop her from calling the police.
Deontay is lying. I did not do nothing, and she lying too. I did not tear up the furniture. I mean, I admit that I went over there, and I opened the door and went in and saw them. What was I supposed to do? Just let them continue doing what they was doing? He know he must lying.
Shh. Listen to me. Listen to me. You have any clue where you are?
Yes.
Did you hear anybody else cursing?
No.
So far?
No.
She came home and found her house destroyed. She didn't open up a fresh mouth.
But I didn't do it. He know exactly who did it. He know that girl did it. And why she did it is because she knew that he had a girlfriend.
Listen to me. Tell me what happened when you got... Tell me what happened.
They was having sex. I opened the door, and right before my eyes, they was having sex.
Okay, so what did you do?
I started going ballistic. I started throwing stuff, tearing up stuff. But I did not tear up her living room set, and I didn't tear up her bedroom set.
When you say you went ballistic, tell me what you did.
I admit I took a knife and some scissors and started trying to go at him with it, because what was I supposed to do? You see somebody you've been with for 3 years, you see them having sex with somebody else. Plus, he didn't tell me that he had another friend in the first place.
Miss Orr, what'd you take it out on her furniture for? Why'd you take it out on him?
I didn't tear up her furniture. I mean, I admit I started...
Shh. Listen to me. You just told me. I admit I had a knife, and I admit I had a scissors, and I admit I did something, but I didn't do all this, is what you told me. So what I'm saying to you is, why did you do anything to her furniture? You didn't find her in bed with anybody, right?
Right.
So you lost your temper. And you didn't have control over your temper because you were very
angry.
And very
upset.
And very
drunk.
You have some bills for me?
Yes, I have. This is how much the furniture costs. And I had went through a bad divorce, and so I didn't have, my credit wasn't as good as it should be. So I had to put down $2,200 on that furniture before it was even delivered to my house.
29 years old?
Yes.
What do you do for a living?
I receive disability.
What's the nature of your disability?
I got a heart failure.
You got heart failure.
Yes.
What were you doing having sex in the middle of the afternoon on
I ain't dead.
28th?
I ain't dead. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know, I mean, it's just sort of find it interesting. Everybody's got disability. This one gets drunk and travels across town to confront somebody, and she's on disability, right? You're 29 years old. You're making hay in the afternoon with somebody, right? I know you're not dead, but if you have enough energy, Mr. Hornsby, to have an afternoon delight, it would seem to me that you could do something like, you know, box candles. Anyway, all right. Listen, I'm perfectly shy. Shh. Your mother finds you cute?
I don't know. You think I'm cute?
No.
What? You have other children?
No.
This is it?
This is it.
You put all your eggs in one basket?
Yes.
Oi! I feel sorry for you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $5,000. That's all. Step out.
Oh, you don't get yours.
Once I jumped up, she started grabbing knives and throwing.
Cancel. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Are you Miss Janikowski?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is your son?
Yes.
Whose name is?
Alex Kinsel.
Alex?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Good. Did you give him a good poke?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. I saw that. It was subtle, but he got it. I'm impressed. Alex.
Yes, ma'am.
I do want you to understand that this is going to be an unpleasant morning for you.
Okay.
Your mother is aware of that, but I'm sure that lately you've had a couple of unpleasant moments with your mother, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You weren't there?
No, ma'am.
And you weren't there?
No, ma'am.
So why don't you have a seat? You're just the question really of liability, and in your case, a question of ownership of the car that was allegedly damaged by Alex.
Yes, ma'am.
When he decided to assault your boyfriend.
Yes, ma'am.
This young man, I assume?
Yes.
The only problem was your boyfriend was sitting in your car.
Yes.
And your car had a sunroof.
Yes.
So Alex, in order to get to
Tyler,
climbed up on the...
I jumped into the sunroof. I didn't climb.
Jumped from the pavement
Yes.
into the sunroof.
Yes, ma'am.
Sort of like Spider-Man. Faster than a speeding bullet, right? Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound.
You're kind of mixing out heroes, but that's it.
That's one of them.
Yeah,
Superman.
yeah.
Spider-Man. So you were able to do that, right?
Yes, ma'am. When you're mad and the adrenaline's rushing, sometimes you do things you don't expect you can do.
So now you want him to pay for the damage that he allegedly caused to your car, right? Alex says through his mother that he's very sorry for assaulting Tyler, which he freely admitted in juvenile court, and he was placed on probation.
Yes.
So he's paying for that crime, and he's sorry he did that, but he didn't damage the car.
No, ma'am.
Because, like Superman, he was able to bound from the sidewalk through the sunroof to get to Tyler without ever touching the car, right? So now, Alex, what?
I'm sorry.
What?
Just picturing it.
I want you to, I tried to draw a word picture to you to get you interested in what's going on.
I'm very interested.
Good. So, why don't you tell me why you decided to assault Tyler?
Almost a year ago, my friend Kevin was killed, Kevin Farrell. And it was due to the fact that Tyler had robbed someone and placed the blame on Kevin.
A year before this happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Who killed your friend?
Lee.
Was he ever apprehended for this murder?
He was apprehended, and he got criminal confinement, and is still in courts right now, I believe.
Or was he convicted?
Of criminal confinement.
Of criminal confinement? What is criminal confinement? I never heard of that.
When they hold them against their will in a car with weapons.
You know these people?
Unfortunately, yes.
Aren't they all these gang people?
No.
Just criminals?
Yes.
Oh, you're terrific. Okay, so according to you, he's responsible for your friend's murder.
Yeah, if it wasn't for him, my friend would still be alive right here now.
Okay, so that's why you were angry with him?
Yes.
Is that why you assaulted him?
That's one of the reasons. They also provoked me.
How did they provoke you?
By flicking me off, saying stuff, parking right next to my car the day it happened.
You mean the day that this assault happened?
Yes.
So they parked next to your car. She parked next to your car?
Yes, and she told me that Tyler had hit her that day, and that angered me as well. And he's supposed to be out of school 10 minutes earlier than all the other students, so he's actually trespassing.
Step up here. Why is he supposed to be out 10 minutes earlier?
Because there's so many people after him for the reason what he did.
You have a special schedule at school, Tyler?
Yes, ma'am. For safety precautions, I leave 10 minutes early at the end of the day, and I come 10 minutes late every morning.
And he did not do that. So if he would
So
have
for
followed
all
the
of
rules,
those reasons, you decided that you were going to assault him?
yes.
Ma'am, a couple of weeks earlier, he had spit in my face at school also before all this had happened and
Did you
got in
do that?
trouble.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
It's his fault my friend's dead.
No.
Okay, so if you assaulted him a week or two before, why are you complaining about being flipped off?
It just angers me.
Are you seeing a psychiatrist?
No.
Do you think you should?
No, ma'am.
You should. He should be seeing a psychiatrist regularly. You understand that? You don't believe that? Step up with him, please. He should be in therapy. Intensive
I don't believe
therapy.
so, because once a person's been harassed off and on, a human being can only take so much.
Listen to
and
me.
He was at his breaking
Listen to me. Did you know that he spit in his face 2 weeks before?
No, I did not.
You see, somebody who's being harassed is usually frightened, so they stay away from the people who are harassing them or threatening them. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do,
Okay.
but when they go to the same high school...
He is the aggressor. When he assaults him, he becomes the aggressor.
I understand.
And that has nothing to do with harassment. He told me that he spit at him 2 weeks before because he believes he's responsible for his friend's murder. Do you understand?
Yes, I do, but Tyler had also off and on since the incident has been harassing Alex.
Listen to me. I'm giving you a friendly word of advice from someone who has been in the juvenile justice system now for almost 30 years.
I know that.
If you don't get him involved in therapy, you're going to be visiting him every other Sunday, and you're going to have to go through a metal detector to do it. I want you to trust me on this. And if you don't, when you look back at your portfolio of photographs of this time in his life, 20 years from now, you're going to say, you know, wouldn't have hurt if I had him talk to somebody and get out all this anger.
Yes, ma'am.
Because his anger has to do with some event that happened a year ago that he hasn't been able to get over.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
Sometimes...
Says fellow schoolmate, 17-year-old Alex Kinsel, damaged her car when he jumped through the sunroof. Tiffany says Alex was attempting to assault her boyfriend.
Can I see pictures of the car, please? I see a lot of damage to this car, Alex.
Yes.
Damage to this car that would suggest to me that you were not able to leap over and get onto the sunroof as you indicated you did.
Your Honor, I did not damage the car. I have a witness that was right there and saw the whole thing.
I'm prepared to hear the witness. You may have a seat. Step up.
And she had also...
Shh. Tell me your name.
Vicki Nofel.
Miss Nofel, this happened at the school. What were you doing at the school?
I was picking up my daughter after school. My car was parked in front of the car that involved in the
tell me
incident.
exactly what you saw.
He didn't actually climb on the car. He held onto where the door is and was in the sunroof. There was no hitting, kicking of the vehicle, and there had been damage to the car before.
How do you know that, my dear?
Well, my daughter goes to that school also.
Yes.
And Tiffany had stated to her that she had hit a deer, and it had damaged the side of her car.
These are footprints. Deer don't have feet. And I cannot imagine, madam.
I understand.
I cannot imagine the kind of assault that he pled guilty to occurred without his feet touching the car if he's in the sunroof. Could you imagine that? It just doesn't make sense. It defies credulity that he can assault somebody with his fists while poised on top of a car, unless this is a toy car. Is it a toy car?
No.
Without his feet hitting the car. You understand that?
I understand.
Good. Now you can sit down.
Excuse me, Judge Judy.
Yes.
We do have a police report, and there is no mention of any damages in the police report.
I'd like to see the police report. This only has to do with the damage to this young man.
Well, I assume that it should have been in there.
No, it does refer to another number that you didn't get. Can I see an estimate, please, on the car? What year car is this?
A 97.
97 what?
Toyota Avalon.
Did you have it fixed?
We don't have the money to fix it.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes.
In court on March 26, 2005, with the juvenile hearing for the attack, Mrs. Borloff was asked if she had any estimates for the damages, and she had said no, she did not, that she just had the car fixed, and she wanted to be reimbursed.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now you can step up.
Nope. And she said she had it fixed by Peterson's Garage in Michigan City.
Is that right? I mean, that's easy for me to call.
She's lying, Judge.
No,
She
I
did
brought
state
that
that.
estimate with me.
She did not have that estimate that day in court.
Are you telling me now that you did not have the car fixed?
No, ma'am.
Then why would she state that she did?
You have a copy of those minutes?
I asked for them
Do
at
you
our
have a
court.
copy of the
No,
minutes?
ma'am, I don't.
Oh, okay.
They said they were not available, otherwise I would have had them.
Okay. Whether she had the car fixed or she has the estimate, your son's got to pay for the damage. Stop making excuses for him.
I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to state the facts.
First, you tell me that your son caused no damage, because that's what he told you.
Yes,
and you
ma'am.
brought a witness to tell me that Superman didn't cause any damage when he assaulted Tyler. Then you tell me that it's because she already had the car fixed, and all she wanted to do was be reimbursed. I'm telling you that you better start thinking about accepting total
I
responsibility
understand that.
for his bad behavior.
But he told me
should
there
not.
was no damages, so.
Well,
Your Honor.
What?
There were tons of people around the car. How I'm not on the side of the car or nothing, you know. I jump into the sunroof. I'm not kicking the car.
Listen to me, Alex.
Yes.
Sometimes life isn't fair, my dear, and sometimes stand up on your own 2 feet and take your hands off the table. Sometimes the justice system is not as fair as you would like it to be if you're a criminal.
17-year-old Tiffany Borlov says fellow schoolmate, 17-year-old Alex Kinsel, damaged her car when he jumped through the sunroof. Tiffany says Alex was attempting to assault her boyfriend.
When you're a criminal and you commit certain acts of vandalism and you say, well, I did that, but I didn't do that. Courts are going to say, listen, I don't have time to figure this out. You jumped up on her car. Common sense suggests that when you jump up on a car and you assault somebody to the extent that you plead guilty to an assault, so it's a serious assault, and according to you, my adrenaline was flowing so that you're able to do things. That's what you told me. So I was able to do things. You never know what your strength is. I don't have to say to myself, well, maybe a deer caused one of these dents, and maybe you caused one of these dents. It's your fault. You're responsible. I can't find the deer. You're it. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,700. That's all.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
That person in there.
Matter of Harrison versus Johnson. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated, ma'am. Have a seat.
Ms. Harrison, you and Mr. Johnson had a relationship that is now over.
Correct.
According to your complaint, some time ago you took a vacation together. You were supposed to split the cost of the vacation, and he still owes you for some of that bill. In addition, after you separated, there was some altercation involving Mr. Johnson, and you claim he assaulted you. You want to be compensated for your pain and suffering as a result of the assault. Mr. Johnson says what was left over from the vacation was a gift, because you said that you would take care of the extra expenses, and that he never assaulted you. As a matter of fact, it was quite the other way around. So, when did this love affair start, and when did it terminate?
We had met in February of '04 while working together, and we had broken up this March.
And when was the vacation that you took?
In February of '05.
Where were you going?
I had purchased Lakers Piston tickets for him for Christmas, so we had went to Detroit, we had watched the game, and we had agreed before we left, you know, everything would be 50-50.
Were you living together at the time?
Yes, we were. So we had went to Detroit, and then we had went to Canada for a few days after that.
Well, is it the Detroit trip or the Canada trip that he owes you for?
It's a combination of all of it. There's actually, the total trip balance was $1,468. Therefore, his half of that would have been $734, which he's paid $354.50 and owes $379.50 as the remainder.
So let's take care of that first. Yes?
She's not telling the truth. I was told that, you know, we would go to the game. You know, she said she's going to buy me the tickets. I'm like, okay. She's talking about she wants to go to Canada to go gamble. I'm like, you know, I don't have the money to go gamble in Canada. I really don't want to go. She says, well, we'll put it on my credit card. You know, don't worry about it. You know, it'll be fine. So I'm like, okay, let's go, you know. I agreed to pay her money for the trip to Detroit, you know, at the game and everything. But then, you know.
Well, how much was that part of the trip, Mr. Johnson?
Well, the tickets were free. She bought
No. Listen to me.
Okay.
How much was your half of the trip to Detroit?
I really don't know. I paid for the hotel, drinks, food, stuff like that.
No, just a second.
Okay.
Was that all put on her credit card?
Well, I gave her the cash. I don't know if she paid with her credit card or whatever. That's on her.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, I have receipts, credit card statements, bank statements from all of the money that was spent. Definitely.
How much was spent from Detroit? I'm just curious.
From Detroit, we've got a charge of $64.59 in the hotel, and then he had bought some drinks at the game itself. That was
well,
all
that's a
from Detroit.
small amount of money. Is that the only bill from Detroit?
That's the only bill from Detroit.
That's what I'm saying.
But he's paid,
just a second.
He's paid $354.
Just a second.
Okay.
When I say just a second, that means you have to stop. The only two bills from Detroit were a $65 bill from a hotel and a couple of drinks. Yes. Is that right?
I guess, according to her bank statements.
Then what did you give her $354 for, sir?
I don't recall how much money I gave her. We had other things going on. You know, like it gets really complicated.
I'm going to uncomplicate it. You owe $379.50 for the rest of the vacation you took together. You did go, and if you didn't want to go, you should have said, if you want to go to Canada, go alone.
But it was.
Do you both? I'm speaking. Did you go to Canada?
Yeah, it was a
Did you
gift on
eat?
her.
Job speaking. I just answer my question.
Okay.
Don't volunteer anything unless I ask you to volunteer, which will be never. Did you go to Canada?
Yes, I did.
Did you sleep in a hotel?
Yes, I did.
Did you eat food?
Yes.
You owe a $379.50.
Oh, man.
Now let's get to the assault. You broke up in March of 2005, and when do you allege this assault took place?
June 13th.
Tell me about it.
I had went over to the apartment which we previously had shared together to talk about some previous matters that were unhandled.
What?
It was money for rent that was due after I'd moved out that he had not paid, and then I in turn had to pay.
Well, what was your agreement as far as moving out and continuing to pay the rent?
The agreement was that he was going to take care of the rent since he did not wish to leave the apartment, which I would have, you know, stayed if he would have left and taken care of everything myself.
Okay.
Anyhow, he had moved in some roommates as well.
So you went over there because you were held responsible for what month's rent?
For the month of June, as well as the first 2 months we had lived there were half price, so they violated the lease, so we had owed that money too. It was $1,300 that I had to pay.
Why did you pay it?
Well, I was buying a house, and I could not have that eviction on my credit if it was not
Were you
paid.
evicted from that apartment?
No.
Did you stay to the end of the lease?
No. The lease still isn't up yet.
All right, so in June you went to see him about some money that you thought he owed you.
Well, I had went over, and he was actually outside already, so he had just come up to the car. So we were talking through the window.
It's not true. She's lying.
Have you ever been in court before,
No,
Mr.
I have
Johnson?
not. No.
Since you have not, I'm going to give you a kindergarten course about court, especially mine. One party testifies, I ask questions. When she's finished testifying, you will be given an opportunity to testify.
Okay.
We don't shout out. This is not a discotheque. This is not a give and take. This is an organized, orderly process. Do we understand each other, sir?
Yes.
I don't have to explain this to you again, do I?
No.
Keep going.
Okay, so he was speaking to me through the window of the car, and he was under the assumption that he thought I had taken money from him earlier that morning when I went to get my mail. So he kept bringing that up, you know, well, I don't care about all this money. Where's my $14? So he reaches in the car, takes my purse. I grab a hold of it before he gets it completely across me because I had it right here on my side. So when I wouldn't let go, he starts hitting me in my chest. And so in turn, you know, I let go of the purse. So I got out of the car, and, you know, I was asking him, you know, can I have my purse back, you know, whatever. And he's pushing me and shoving me, pushing me, you know, back from him. So, you know, he goes into the house and gets away from the situation. So immediately I had dialed 911 to, you know, reach the police. And they went to the door, you know, and got him outside and talked to him as well. I have the police run log as well.
I want to see a hospital record.
Okay, well, I didn't go to the hospital.
Doctor's report.
I didn't go to the doctor.
Get over it. Whatever pushing and shoving was done over the pocketbook was no big deal. Don't make it into a big deal. Then I begin to doubt your veracity. We understand each other?
Sure.
Good.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Johnson owes for a trip to Canada and for an assault.
Did you think that she took money from your house?
I know that she took money from my house.
And how do you know that, Mr. Johnson?
Well, I do have 2 roommates. My roommates were asleep, and it was about 7 o'clock in the morning when she came in my house. In the meantime, I had money on my table in my room.
$14.
$14, but it was all the money that I had at the time. So, you know, it's like $1 million to me because it's all I had. Anyways, I go downstairs. You know, I talk to her about whatever, you know, the money situation, the rent, da-da-da. Okay, she says to me, she says, how much money do you have? I'm like, well, not enough, you know.
Well, you're living there. Why don't you have money for the rent,
Well,
Mr. Johnson?
this is about, I have got money. I had, like I said.
Listen to me, sir. Don't double talk me. It's June. Where's your rent money? You and your 2 sleeping roommates.
We had the rent money for the month, right? The thing is we were being charged extra money for the rent. Instead of being $600, we were being charged $1,200. In all reality, we were moving. She just didn't know it yet, so I wasn't going to give her anything, you know. Now.
So you're going to stiff her on the landlord?
No. I was going to pay it. It's big. It's hard to explain it. You know, it would take a long time. Anyway, let's get to the point. She goes upstairs. She says, I'm going to go look for some money.
Have you? And so she took you $14. You went upstairs. You didn't see your $14, so you figured it was in her purse. When she came back later, you went into the purse. Fine.
Fine.
Who paid the landlord the $1,200?
She did.
Have you paid her back?
No. No. And as a matter of fact...
Are you on drugs?
Huh?
Are you on drugs?
No.
Then just answer me. I asked you a simple question. I said if you paid her back. The answer is no. One no will be sufficient.
The answer is no. I shouldn't have to pay her back. Yeah.
Well, she didn't file a counterclaim. I'm just curious. Why didn't she ask for that money?
I was told I should handle that in the local Franklin County courts.
That's too bad. In any event, he owes you $379.50 for the vacation, which he agreed to pay for, and he did not completely pay for. I don't believe he assaulted you to any extent that requires compensation by a court. He was angry, but I don't believe he hurt you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $379.50. And Ms. Harrison, let me explain this to you. You should thank your lucky stars that you got out when you did.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
Good,
man.
thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out. You may step out.
She's an evil person. You know, that's why. I don't know why she did it.
He said that he would have the means to pay me back.
She wanted to stay at the Hilton. You know, she wanted to go all out.
That's just the way I roll.
After we broke up, you know, in March, it turned into...
Yeah, this is case number 198 on the calendar in the matter of Rose versus Mashud. Parties have been sworn in, Judge. You may be seated.
Miss Rose, you rented a room from the defendant, and according to your complaint, you were forced to move out early.
Yes.
You want prorated rent.
Yes.
You certainly want your security deposit back. And you want compensation for what you say were very nasty things that the defendant posted about you on the internet.
That's correct.
The defendant says that you chose to move out. You don't get compensated for choosing to leave before the end of the 30 days. That your cat did some damage to the rug, so you don't get your security back. And she acknowledges she wrote nasty things about you on the internet, but she said everything she wrote about you was the truth, and the truth is a perfect defense.
That's very true.
When did you move into this room, Ms. Rose?
On May 1st, on April 22nd, I answered an ad.
Do you recall what it said?
It said that I was going to be a roommate, that it was $400 for the rent, that she had 3 cats, and 1 more would be great. And
no, just a second. That's not what the ad said.
Yes, it did. It said she had 3 cats and 1 more would be great.
Oh, that's what the ad said?
Yes.
It must be a very long ad. Where was it?
Craigslist.com.
.org. .org. Correction. Tell me what happened when you went and looked in the house.
It was 11 o'clock at night. She said that it was dirty, but she would clean it, and that the hot water in the sink was broken, the pipe, but she would fix it before I moved in, and the toilet that I was renting out with the bathroom was broken as well, but that would be fixed as well.
How many rooms did you look at?
3 different rooms, and this is the one that I chose.
This is the one that had a broken sink, a broken toilet, and was filthy. Is the one that you chose, Miss Rose?
Actually, it was the rent. It was cheaper than normal. Others were asking for $650, so I figured I was only going to be here till the summer. It should not be an issue.
Was the toilet fixed?
No, the toilet was never fixed, and neither was the hot water, which I had to eat out because I couldn't wash dishes. There were maggots in the sink. There were roaches, flies.
Who else lived in the house?
It was supposed to be just myself and Sheena, and she brought her crackhead mother in, who has no teeth and has tattoos everywhere, who she failed to mention was an ex-convict who had been in jail for 12 years for a violent crime. Not only that, but...
Just a second. When you moved in May 1st, was her mother there?
No, her mother was not there.
When did her mother move in?
Her mother started coming by in the middle of May and started hanging out, bringing her other crackhead friends who had no teeth.
I'm a dentist's daughter. Let's not talk about the teeth. Let's talk about the drugs.
Okay.
What makes you think that she was using crack?
Because I came home the night before I moved out, and her friend were smoking crack in the living room.
That would give me a clue.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your mother incarcerated for, Miss Mashud?
I believe it was theft, and she violated her parole several times.
She violated her parole because of her drug use?
No, it had to do with the fact that she wasn't seeing her probation officer like she was supposed to when she was released early.
Listen, if you're released early and you want to stay out of jail, unless you're involved with drugs, you usually see your probation officer.
Well, actually, the problem was that she moved back to Colorado without asking her probation officer, and she stayed out there for 3 years.
Well, that would be a problem.
Yes, obviously, as the rule was that she was supposed to keep in contact.
How long was she incarcerated?
I'm not sure. I never lived with my mom as a child, so.
When was she released from prison?
At least 5 years ago.
How come she started to come to your house?
Because I previously, before she had ever moved in, had paid my mom to come to my house to clean my apartment because I work 18-hour days. I have 2 different jobs. I work during the day. I'm a special effects makeup artist. I work very hard, and I don't have time to spend, even if it is 4 hours that I get to sleep, to spend cleaning up my apartment.
You
So
mean
I
there's
paid her to
nobody
do
else
that.
that could clean your apartment other than your mother?
Well, I don't trust anybody else to come into my apartment because I have many things that are worth a lot of money.
So what you're telling me is you trust your mother?
Yes, I do.
The mother who she says, and I believe her,
Yes.
invited somebody into your home and they were smoking dope in your house.
Nobody else other than my mom was invited into my home.
Well, she did. Bring somebody else into your home.
I had never seen the person.
Well, I'm
and I don't
telling
know who
you,
she's
she
speaking
did.
of.
She did. So your judgment wasn't very good in choosing your mother. Listen to me. Your judgment wasn't very good in choosing your mother to clean your house.
I believe my judgment was just fine. Aside from the fact that she had been incarcerated before, it doesn't mean that she would do anything like that again.
Well,
It was
but
a
she
petty
brought
problem.
somebody.
I
Listen
love
to
my
me.
mother.
She brought somebody into your house, and they were smoking
There's
dope
no
in
proof
your
of that.
house.
Who is that?
I believe her.
I'm glad you believe her, but I don't know that that's true. I know that my mom has not been on drugs for many years. I know that she does have permanent psychosis because of doing drugs for many years, and that is true. But she's not a current drug user. Otherwise, I wouldn't bring her into my house because I wouldn't trust her around my stuff personally.
Ms. Michaud, that's your problem. You want to
Yes,
have
it
this
is.
unabiding faith in your mother, with whom you say you never resided when you were growing up,
That's
who was
true.
incarcerated most of that time. That's up to you. I absolutely, 100% believe her when she says that she came home the day before she moved out and your mother was in the house smoking dope, which, as far as I'm concerned, gives her the right to leave in the middle of the month.
Well,
I'm speaking. What day of the month did you move out?
It was the 18th.
So you want prorated rent for the 12 days that you weren't there.
That's correct.
Okay, and how much does that come to?
$146.50.
My mother had not moved in at that point. She was a guest of mine.
Excuse me?
Shh. Listen to me. She doesn't. Listen to me very carefully, Miss Michaud.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't. Listen, try to listen. I know you've got a lot going on in your hair and your face, everything else, but try to pay attention. She doesn't have to live in your house. You have invited a guest into your home, your mother, who was involved in behavior that I believe could have endangered someone else who was living in the house. If the police had come to your house and found your mother and someone else in possession of crack cocaine in your house, everyone in the house would have been involved in that drug sweep. So she was very smart to move out. And since you have acknowledged that you invited your mother into the house for the purposes of cleaning, you can't say she had no right to move. She did have a right to move. And since you invited this problem into your house, you have to compensate her for the 12 days in rent that she did not have use and enjoyment of her room.
Well,
that's my ruling. You may not like it. That's why
She failed
you
to
go
mention
to
that her boyfriend
that's
is a
why
speed addict,
I'm speaking.
and he's in
listen,
my and he's
listen
staying
to
in
me.
my house.
Listen to me very
For the
carefully.
whole time she was there.
Listen to me very carefully, madam. I don't know where else you work or what else you do to enhance your senses, but in my courtroom, I speak, I listen.
Obviously, you don't listen very well.
You know, I'm listening. You're not hearing what I'm saying because you don't like the answer.
Judge Judy continues in a moment. Sheena Mashoud owes for the return of rent and a security deposit. Jenny also claims Sheena slandered her via the internet.
How much is your security?
$200. I have a copy of the sublease as well.
Can I see it, please?
And I have a copy of the letter she told me to vacate immediately.
Okay.
She wanted me to pay for her mother's rent for the next month.
Listen. Did you write this letter? There will be a $500 rent increase for your bedroom and private bathroom starting July 1st. Did you write this?
Yes, that's what
All
Officer
right, good.
Hutchinson told me to do.
$146.50 and $200 for your security deposit. Do you have any pictures of the rug that was allegedly caused by her cats?
No, but
Good. Now I would like to see what was written on the internet.
This is a networking site that my coworkers, my supervisors and boss, as well as my family and friends read. I was contacted by one of my coworkers.
Well, the one thing I do know for sure, Miss Mashoud, is that you have a filthy mouth.
Thank you.
And I assume that you work in this town?
Yes, I do.
Good. I certainly hope that enough people, since we do have a reasonable audience in this town, watch this and know that I personally am offended that a woman would use the kind of vulgarities that you do, written, I don't think, quite frankly, Miss Rose, that any fair-minded, reasonable person would accept anything that you wrote here as true.
Oh, of course not.
Because she clearly is a demented, sick girl. I don't know how she finds work in this town, but clearly there are a lot of demented, sick people who want demented, sick employees. That's the problem here sometimes. I can't judge that. Clearly, this is miserable. I'm not going to ask her how she's going to establish to my satisfaction that you committed the kinds of sex acts that she attributes to you, because certainly you don't want that, and I wouldn't, because it's really unseemly. Suffice, I'm speaking! I'm speaking!
Am I going to speak at all this?
No, go speak outside. Somebody who wants to hear you. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $346.50. Thank you.
Toodles. I had invited my mother over to clean my house while I was on vacation, and she accused my mom of being a thief.
Those who look like trash and act like trash are usually trash.
She's been nothing but a terror to me, pretty much like a little yipping chihuahua.
I'm glad I don't have to deal with her crackhead mother and the fact that she has no teeth and thinks she's a lot, which she's not. So it's good. I'm happy.
Peters, step forward, please.
Rebecca Thompson is suing the mother of her son's schoolmate, Miranda Peters, for medical bills. Rebecca says Miranda's boy broke her son's arm while roughhousing.
Your son? Yes, ma'am. Just next to you. Who was the basketball player? What's your first name?
Keith.
And yours?
Michael.
Your arm got broken in school.
Yes, ma'am.
Your arm got broken when he bumped into you.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what happened.
Well, I was trying to get into the game, and pretty much...
When did this happen?
March 17th of 04.
You were trying to get into what game?
The basketball game. In PE that day, it was pretty much a free day, and I was trying to get into the game, and they were pretty much just shoving me off.
Who was?
All the players. So I would steal the ball and run away with it, trying to be funny, and all the players would chase me.
So what I'm hearing is neither team wanted you to play that day, so you decided to play class clown and steal the ball and interrupt their game.
Yes, ma'am.
So what happened next?
Well, all the players pretty much chased me down and eventually got it from me, and while I was standing in the crowd, he gestured for the other players to clear a path to me, and when he did, he tossed the ball at me. And whenever I saw it was coming at me, I just tensed up and turned, and it hit me in my left hip.
Didn't hurt you?
No, ma'am.
And then what happened?
I just sort of walked up to him. Behind him was a gym mat, pretty thick and soft. So I wrapped my arms around him and purposely fell onto the gym mat. Everybody was laughing, and he did the same thing to me. And
you wrestled him, then he wrestled you to the ground, to the mat.
It was not an act of anger.
Okay. So you weren't angry with him?
No, ma'am.
And you don't think he was angry with you?
No, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
What happened next?
Well, there was a rolled-up gym mat close to the compacted bleachers to the wall, and I got in between that, and just for the thrill of not being seen, and about 10 or 15 minutes.
I don't understand what that means. Just for the thrill of not being seen.
Just a childly...
No, well, what were you doing?
Nothing.
You mean you were hiding?
Yes, ma'am.
Who were you hiding from?
Nobody.
Keith.
Yes, ma'am.
So far, I'm getting a whole good story. I love this story so far. He wasn't angry with you, you weren't angry with him, but now you're hiding someplace and you're not hiding from anybody.
Well,
that doesn't sound like you could...
Well, I mean, me and my friend Anthony were both doing it, and he was behind another one to the right of me, and about...
What were you doing?
Just hiding.
Just hiding?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And, well, I tried to get out, and I pulled... It was kind of to wheeze my way out, and I pulled my my left arm across my chest, and about that time I just felt the mat be shoved into me.
The mat being shoved into you by?
By Michael.
And that's how you broke your arm?
Yes, ma'am.
So, Michael, what happened?
I ran the mat. I wasn't intentionally trying to break his arm. I was just horseplaying with him like we were earlier. And
so you were horseplaying?
Yeah.
You knew he was there?
Yes, ma'am.
You knew he was there?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Miss Peters, your defense to this says, let me read it so that I make sure I get your language clear. I told her that with children, and particularly with boys, these things happen.
Yes, Your Honor.
Explain that to me.
The reason I said that boys will be boys and that it wasn't my responsibility to pay for the bills was because it was an accident. He didn't mean to do it.
It wasn't an accident, Ms. Peters. That's your problem, you see. If your son was playing a game and during the course of the game he ran into this structure, not intending to come into contact with Keith at all, but it was during the course of a game and he was at a place where he could get hurt, that's an accident. But that's not what your son told me. Your son told me he saw him there and he was just fooling around with him and rammed him. Unfortunately, when he rammed him, his arm was in such a position that it broke. Okay. So his action, not in breaking his arm, I don't think he intended to break his arm, of course not. But he intended to hit him. And for that, he is responsible. Just as if he had broken his leg when he tackled him to the mat. Horseplay. But when young people are involved in horseplay, and if you had broken his leg, who would have been responsible?
I would have.
You're right. What were your medical expenses?
Before or after insurance?
After insurance.
After insurance, the total was $706.07.
I'm not saying that your son bears any responsibility with regard to this incident, but I believe he has to know that when 10 people are playing basketball, you're not supposed to act like a jerk, right?
Yes, ma'am. We've already established that.
Good. You know, Michael, sometimes when you do the wrong thing, things happen. There are consequences, even those that you don't anticipate. You got to start being a two-process thinker and say, listen, if I do this, this could happen. It's not worth it. Being a fool is not worth it. Being a fool isn't worth it. How long was your arm in a cast?
6 weeks.
And this happened in March, so it was during school.
Yes, ma'am.
You don't even get to relax. When did you get the cast off?
I'm not sure.
End of April.
So you got a chance to enjoy the summer.
Yes, ma'am.
Good. You still friends?
I think so.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Judgment for the plaintiff, and that's $706.
She was very rude to me on the phone after I told her that I didn't feel like we needed to help pay her bills. The only thing I remember about the conversation was her saying, if you need to go after anybody, you need to go after the school. She threatened that she could have my son arrested. And I just responded, well, I can see that we're not going to agree on this. I'll have to pursue it by other means. And I remember hanging up.
That of Lappick versus Nielsen.
Thank you, Bird.
You're welcome, Judge. Parties have been sworn in, Your Honor. You may be seated. Sir, have a seat, please.
Mr. and Mrs. Lappick, are you together or are you separated?
We're divorced.
When were you divorced?
In May of 2005.
So you are living separately or not living separately?
Separately.
I let her stay in my house and she rents from me.
You don't live there?
No.
When was this incident that brings you to court?
July 23rd.
So it was after your divorce?
Right.
According to your complaint, Mr. Nielsen was at that time a boyfriend of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And the two of you had been out with some other friends. Subsequently, you invited a group of people back to your house, according to what I read, and you decided not to go back home. You decided to go and check in with your ex-husband. And it is your complaint that Mr. Nielsen, probably because he got angry, trashed the house you were living in. And since it's your ex-husband's house, he is a co-plaintiff. Is that about right?
Yes.
Yes.
Who went out that evening?
It was me, Jim Nielsen, Jay, one of my friends, and Justin, another one of my friends. We ended up going to the bar, and then we all went to a restaurant to eat. And Chris was at the restaurant. And I called his phone, he called my phone, we were arguing.
What were you arguing about?
We just always argue about
Well, you were
everything.
divorced already, so why
Right.
were you arguing? Do you have
Well-
children together?
No.
No.
Just because she still lives in my house and we still have contact with each other.
Why do you let her live in your house?
Because her and her son, I didn't want them to have to go out and find a place because it's more expensive.
Okay, how old a child do you have?
2.5.
Not your child?
No.
How long were you married?
Only like 5 months.
7 or 8 months.
Well, I'm not exactly sure because we got legally separated first.
We'll do 4 months.
All right, so you were arguing with Chris in July. On the 23rd of July, you were having dinner with a group of people. What happened next?
Justin, he was my roommate. I ended up having him and his friend drop me off at Chris's house.
Why are you laughing? What's funny?
Because I'm stupid.
Oh.
But anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got dropped off at his house, and Justin said that he was going back to his friend's house to watch some movies.
I let one of her friends also move in there to help her with the rent.
So Justin was your roommate
Right.
in your house.
Exactly.
Okay, so you went to Chris's house, and your roommate Justin dropped you off at Chris's house.
Right.
How long did you stay at Chris's house?
I stayed the night.
Where was your child at that point?
At his father's.
Does he live with you or his father?
He lives with me.
Okay, so you stayed the night with your ex-husband. And what happened when you got home?
My front porch railing was ripped off. The door frame was cracked all the way down the side, and the screws were out. The door was like, I don't know, it wouldn't shut. It was wide open. There was a huge hole in the wall. I have pictures.
I'd like to see the pictures.
There were eggs, ketchup, mustard, mayonnaise, cereal, bread, milk, cough syrup, all over my walls, all over my rugs.
What makes you think that Jim here was responsible for this damage?
Well, he always wears a wife beater under any of his shirts.
What does he wear?
Oh, wife beater. It's like a tank top.
What is that called?
It's a wife beater, isn't it?
shirt. Is that what the T-shirt says on it, or is that what it's called?
That's what it's called.
I never
believe.
heard that. Did you
Is
ever hear
what
that?
it's called?
Yep.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you.
A tank top shirt? Man wears a tank top shirt. It's called a wife beater?
It's just plain white. It's like a three-finger.
White or wife?
Wife.
Wife?
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So I found that in my house. It was covered in everything that was all over my floors and walls, and it was ripped off. And Jim, when he goes out and drinks and when he gets mad, he rips off his shirt and just throws it wherever. So I knew that was him. So I called him, and I told him, I said, Jim, I said, why'd you destroy my house? He's like, oh, I didn't. I'm like, you tell me you didn't destroy my house. I said, I found this. My entire house is trashed. He's like, I don't know. I didn't do it. I said, well, I'm calling the cops. So I called the police, and then after I was waiting for the police to show up, Chris called Jim back, and...
What happened when you called him back?
I called him up. I was angry. I knew it was obviously something to do with the fact that she left with me. So I knew it was probably him and his friends.
How long had you dated him before that evening?
3 weeks.
So
Go ahead.
I called him up, and I was yelling. I'm like, what's going on? Come into my house, destroy my house. He goes, first he said I didn't, then he goes, well, I was mad. He said something like, I was drunk, I was mad, something along those lines. Like, he admitted to it. We called the police. He admitted that the police officer came over.
You have a police report?
Yes, I do.
I'd like to read it. Thank you. All right, Jim, I'm with you.
I didn't do nothing. I woke up with stuff all over me.
You went back to her house?
Yeah, Justin had the key. We were drinking there for a little bit, and I passed out. I wake up, I got all this stuff all over, eggs and stuff all over me. I didn't know what happened, holes in the wall and everything. And she's saying I admitted to it. I never admitted to nothing, to the cops at all.
You're John.
Yep.
Jim, John, and Justin. You were there that evening?
No. The following day I was there. They came to my apartment.
Who did?
I came to his apartment in the morning.
Justin's the one that brought it up to me. What I think is Justin had the key.
Just a minute. I don't care what you think. What you think is irrelevant. When you finish law school, you can get a job as a judge, and hopefully somebody will care about what you think. I just want you to tell me what you heard and what you saw.
Judge Judy continues in a moment.
All right, let me see the estimate. Come on, I had enough. Let's go. Got other...
And Christopher claimed Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, James Nielsen, destroyed their home in a drunken rage.
Go ahead.
I heard the house got trashed. And I took Justin back to the house, and I seen it.
Good. Thank you. Now, did you speak to the police?
Yeah, on the phone.
Listen to me. Do you know the police in Auburn, New York?
Yes.
You think they have it in for you?
No.
They don't know you. They don't care about you,
Yeah.
right? The police say that you said he was drunk and did some and saw the damages.
I didn't say I paid for all the damages.
Okay, there we go. Oh, God, my life is... What? Okay, what
I
did
said
you...
I would fix the damages.
Oh, okay.
If...
just a second. So you didn't say you would pay for the damage, you said you would fix the damage.
Yes.
So that's what you told them?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you acknowledge that you did some of the damage?
Yeah. Well, I didn't do all the damages, you know.
I don't care whether you did some or all.
I'm not going to be, you know, the one paying for all the damages, though, you know. There's other people there.
Well, then this is what you have to do, Jim.
I call her and tell her I was going to come fix it, and she's like, oh, no, I can't do it now. I don't want you to fix it. I got somebody else to fix it.
What do you
I bought all this stuff to go fix it.
What do you do for a living?
Huh? I got 2 jobs. I work at MKM, and I'm an electrician.
What's MKM?
Trucking business.
But you're not a carpenter.
No. I can still do it, though.
Are you a brain surgeon?
No.
You wouldn't try that, would you?
No.
I mean, if somebody said, you know, here's Bird, he needs a little brain surgery, you wouldn't say, I'm going to try. Not what I do, but I'll give it a try. Wouldn't do that. So they're entitled to have a professional carpenter fix that. They don't have to accept your offer to fix it yourself.
But the railing wasn't all broke. It came all off. The screws just fell out of it. That's all that happened.
When you commit a crime, sir, you don't get to choose your punishment.
Your Honor, I told him he could fix it, and we went a month of him not doing anything, and then I said, well, we'll just do a payment of $527, because that's what I estimated myself.
$527, an odd number to estimate.
But then...
Isn't that an odd number to estimate? But $527, no sense. No. Just $527.
Just figured. Yeah, I know.
All right, let me see the estimate. Come on, I had enough. Let's go. Got other fish to fry today.
Yeah.
This is not an estimate. This is something that you prepared.
That's all the personal stuff.
Eggs, your food estimate, your eggs, a pudding, Jell-O, mayonnaise, bread, a gallon of milk. You know what that comes under the category of? You know what you said to me before when I asked you why you were smiling? Remember what you said? Because you were...
Okay. Stupid. All right.
Go buy your own eggs. That is pretty stupid. Why didn't you take pictures of the way the rest of the place looked? Hama?
Because Chris went and bought a camera, and we were supposed to take pictures of the house while it was fully...
Assalamu alaikum दोस्तों, welcome to again Ali Tech YouTube channel. उम्मीद करता हूँ आप बिल्कुल खैरियत से होंगे, जहाँ भी होंगे फिट फाट होंगे। दोस्तों, मैंने पिछली भी काफ़ी अर्से से आप लोगों को इन्फॉर्मेशन वीडियो टैग रिलेटेड वीडियो दे रहा हूँ, जो मसले मसाइल होते हैं उसी के बारे में। तो इस डिवाइस पर मैंने एक वीडियो ऑलरेडी बनाई थी, इसकी बैटरी की वीडियो भी बनाई थी, वो इसकी बैटरी के बारे में भी आगाह किया था। तो कुछ लोगों ने इस कमेंट किया कि इसका जो सिम की है उस पर थोड़ी सी वीडियो बना दें और इसके अंदर का जो भी सीन होगा उस पर भी वीडियो बना देंगे, बैटरी कहाँ लगेगी, सिम कहाँ लगेगी, तो और इसका जो रीसेट वाला सिस्टम वो कहाँ पर होता है अगर पासवर्ड रीसेट करना हो। तो ये हर चीज़ आज इस वीडियो में ही आपको बताने वाला हूँ। जी हाँ दोस्तों, ये आपके सामने एक स्लॉट नज़र आ रही है, इसमें एक टेलनर कंपनी की सिम डली हुई है। और आपको बताता चलो, ये एक जोन की डिवाइस है। आपको पता होगा कि जो भी डिवाइसेस में किसी भी कंपनी की सिम चल जाती है। तो मेरे पास यहाँ टेलनर की सिम है और मैं इसी पर ही नेट चलाता हूँ। ये देखें दोस्तों, और इसके साथ ये जहाँ बैटरी लगती है ये 4 पिन लगी बनी हुई है, ये हो गया। और यहाँ ये जो आपको रीसेट नज़र आ रहा है, नीला नीला लिखा हुआ ये बटन है, और साथ ये रीसेट लिखा हुआ नज़र आ रहा है। ये इस पर ये देखें नज़र नीला, ये रीसेट करने वाला है। और ये इसका ये एडमिन होता है, यूज़र नेम होता है। बाकी उम्मीद करता हूँ आपको सारी समझ आ गई होगी। ये चार्जिंग है, स्लॉट है, इससे चार्जिंग लगाई जाती है। तो मुझे दीजिए इजाज़त, मिलते हैं नेक्स्ट वीडियो में। Ali Tech यूट्यूब चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लें। अल्लाह।